We're gonna just jump into this. I'm just gonna press play once, actually, I'll count us in. So starting in three, two, one, go. I'm pretty much just gonna be talking over this though. We're not actually gonna be casting this game too much, although it is interesting. So this is any four of seven old art ballroom, and as you can see, it looks quite a bit different. I don't know how many people have really spent a lot of time in old art that'll be watching. Swap is turned off in this because we hated ourselves and we played 84 of 7 and I don't really know. I don't actually remember 84 of 7 really being much of a thing for that long.
Well, it was way back in the day. I think one of the first ever
Banana bread.
SpyParty tournaments, which is still the finals of which are still on YouTube. Bloodwolf won it, by the way. I think they played 3-5 back then, and it was considered pretty balanced. Snipers were not that good, is I guess the way to put it. And that's why 4-7 was a thing and 4-8 wasn't, and why KCM just got away with a red purloin and only got a highlight for it.
Yeah, so this is an SCL game from 2017. I'm guessing it may have been a tiebreaker. Yeah.
Right. So some of the old tiebreaker rules, you were allowed to basically pick a mode or something, and then the other person could decide whether to spy or snipe one game, something like that. Which meant you got some crazy modes in old art maps, especially because back then it wasn't all new art. That was Season 4. Now it's required to be new art.
Okay, so right now we've just kind of like been hopping in here. We've missed a purloin. I haven't really been paying attention. I'm just looking at the features of the old art map. So there's not... Ballroom is one of the most faithfully translated maps in the game from old art to new art. The bars are a little bit more obnoxious in old art, I want to say, which covers Trey a little bit more. But really pretty faithful. The visuals are obviously a lot different. Really, man, looking back on Ballroom, I never really noticed how much of a prison Ballroom looked like back in the day with these really thick bars.
Yeah, it looks really bad and it looks really barren, and even some of the angles are different. I'm surprised. It is a faithful recreation in terms of general setup, but in terms of like sort of the fisheye view, the camera angle, it's actually quite different and feels very different. But it does, you're right, it does ultimately play the same. It didn't change too much, and the win rates are not dramatically different between the two last I've seen either, so that's pretty good.
All right, and so KCM is shot. So the main reason I opened up with this is I wanted to emphasize this is the oldest map that we have. It's the map that we've played first. It is one of the reasons I just wanted to jump into Ballroom as far as the slowcasting map is because it has the most history out of any map that we have.
Yeah, easily. It was the first map. When this was closed beta, it was the only thing you could play for a long time. It was the overwhelming majority of my games when I played, even though there were other maps then at the time. Back when we even called them maps, for example, as opposed to venues, which we still do all the time because it's so much easier to say. Sorry, Checker. And also because that made it one of the first new art venues, which means that it's been around more competitively too. So all the numbers you're going to hear me quote today, for example, pretty much all of them are going to be from SCL games, which obviously excludes some things, but it doesn't exclude Ballroom because Ballroom has been around for such a long time. So it's been in all 5 seasons of SCL, even when it was one of just a handful of new art venues being played competitively.
All right, well, that is it for the introduction, and now we're be jumping into the much prettier. I won't spend too much time in the old art, or else Checker will yell at me for putting old art on the official stream. But now, here we are in the new art. Oh, so much better. Actually, in the weird, it's strange. I'm more used to this. It's been long enough playing in the new art that the old art looks weird now, which is very strange to me.
Yeah, it looks and feels very different as a result. And again, the dimensions feel different. It's just that everything is in the same place, basically. That's the thing that is most faithful, really.
I wonder actually if they kept the proportions of the windows like the same, where they just stretched it out, because they have the bars there, but they're obviously a lot taller. But I wonder if they stretched them in the same way, like they actually kept the ratio.
Well, yeah, the number one in a real ballroom, they're always high ceilinged, pretty much. And the old art one of the reasons it feels like a prison is not because of the general length; it's because of the lack of height. That's actually the thing. Not to get all socioeconomic here or something, but the thing about prisons that feels so confining is not so much just the floor plan; it's the ceiling being so low. to make room for more above and below. Rooms can feel much bigger or smaller that way. Even a small apartment can feel pretty big if the ceilings are high. This is more like an actual ballroom. There's even you could see a balcony up there. Not the balcony, but a balcony. But it's basically twice the height, it feels like, of the old ballroom. You could stack 2 or 3 characters before you reach the ceiling, whereas in the old one, it's basically just 2.
All right, very well. Okay, so we are jumping into a challenger game. I tried to pick people from generally the middle of the pack to get kind of a good representation. One of the things about jumping between the divisions is there is some sorting still to be done, where some of the tops of the divisions are clearly outside of the norm for that division. So we should be getting the good representation, I guess, of each division as we go up. Although, as we know, sometimes the players in the newer divisions are monsters relative to how long they've actually been playing the game.
Yeah, we're trying to get median representations of each division. It's still not going to be perfect, but it'll help.
Okay, well, let me type in the names of these players. I don't think they're actually in the database that we have.
I don't know. You're gonna update the scoreboard for each game?
Well, I'm probably not going to update the scoreboard, but I'll at least have their names on there.
Fair enough. Yeah, Tabsies and Spedmonkey. Spedmonkey, I believe, recently graduated from the bar. So,
congrats.
Sorry, I guess you say past the bar, don't you?
Yeah, right. Because you don't actually graduate from it, because you could take the bar without ever going to law school.
Wouldn't advise it, but yes, you could.
Okay. Well, I think that should be good. Just getting my sea legs back. Yes, we are good. Spedmonkey as white dress or pearls, and let's go ahead and get started in 3, 2, 1, go. And we'll be pausing and stopping and talking a lot for people that haven't been to a Slowcast before. So we're going to get distinct from each other, but are also going to be not casting this as a normal game. So right now, we have Ambassador come up to us. What do you think about this? How risky do you think it'd be going for a bug at that point? I mean, obviously we didn't take it.
I think it was a pretty decent opportunity, because if they're not selling out on seeing it, they're not going to be confident it took place, especially because I think they came to them, which is a big, interesting thing. Actually, let me go back and make sure. You can keep going, don't worry.
Yeah.
So which is a really interesting little wrinkle to this. Some people watch that more closely than when someone approaches the ambassador, but I think most watch it less, because you're thinking, what are the odds the ambassador came up to the spy? They're always low. If they didn't come up to the spy, then I'm fine. On the other hand, that's exactly what makes it such a tempting bug. I know Kaylee said he likes to watch those more, so you have different philosophies on that. But I think those are sneakily easy bugs to get away with, is when the ambassador comes up to you, especially if you don't do it right as they approach. It's when you see someone walking towards the ambassador that those red flags go up in your mind.
Okay. And also, I'm going to go and pause for a little bit. So,
what time are you at?
I'm at 2:16. So right now we've opened, like, the thing is, we're starting in Challenger, and already it's a pretty smooth opening right now. We have a lot of options. I'm paused right at the moment where we're at Blue Bookcase. We flirted for 50%. We picked up the fingerprint. There's another fingerprint available at the side statue. So one of the things about Ballroom is it feels large, but it is still an any 4 of 8 map. It's actually, I would say, one of the friendliest map completion maps that we have. Say, unless you have like the huge outliers like Balcony, for example. It's not that hard to complete the missions, but also on that same note, there's so many conversations. It's a little bit harder to get a really good BB. You're usually eliminating a lot of important people, and snipers are a little bit jumpier about shooting for inspects. I don't know if that holds as true in Diamond, but it seems to hold true a little lower.
Yeah, it depends. It certainly depends. And you mentioned, finishing. Well, in 1,462 SCL Ballroom games, spies reach countdown just over 40% of the time, for what that's worth.
Interesting. That is very interesting, because I wonder how that holds up relative to other maps, because Ballroom is a map where I was actually finding this because we were considering doing Veranda as well. Veranda does not reach countdown very often. Usually in Veranda, either someone gets shot, the spy gets shot, or someone else gets shot a lot of the time before countdown's ever reached. But Ballroom is not that hard to reach countdown. Now, you may get shot when you reach countdown. There's definitely ways to go about it very aggressively. I mean, I could basically, if the win condition was just reaching countdown, I could
Yeah,
flirt banana bread, go to center statue, and swap pretty much every game and get
right,
to countdown. It's not hard to get to countdown.
right. In Veranda, it's 30.8%, so
I see.
10% less.
So big significant drop, but I mean that is also partially because of just the extra mission. But Ballroom also is very compact, and so we'll be talking about a lot of different things in
Yes.
Ballroom, and I'll try not to blow
No, that's
all the
very relevant,
analysis
and
in.
that's relevant to the character too. This is one of the slowest characters, and this is a venue where it really doesn't matter, because you are going to have plenty of time to do what you need in terms of physical distance, and there are actually a decent number of drive-by bug opportunities, and that's one area where slow characters can, make a little bit of a difference. Although usually that's an argument for making this character the ambassador rather than being the character, but we'll see if that comes up.
That's also a very good point where, relative to other maps, I'm kind of just spitballing here, but relative to other maps, the slow but good bug characters are particularly strong in this map because there are tons of times you'll be walking near Ambassador and you just have to get a relatively decent bug off. I guess, okay, on Ballroom, bug paths are less suspicious than they are in other maps because a lot of people are going to be passing by Ambassador on this map because of its compactness. So bug paths are less suspicious, and more the actual bug arm relative to other maps is more important. So slower characters like Orange or White usually a little bit tougher to manage because of the slow walking speed, but with the slow walking speed plus a relatively benign bug animation are pretty powerful on this map because you're gonna be having people are gonna be pathing by Ambassador all the time.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of like Tan. We always say on the cast for Tan, you have to credit the bug sometimes. Half the party could have bugged very easily. It's not quite that bad with Ballroom, but it's pretty bad. You'll actually see enterprising spies deliberately stand in some of these back conversations, the two back conversations closest to the far wall away from the sniper. If you stand in the back of those and there's a relatively full conversation around you, this ambassador at some point is going to walk along that wall past those statues, or to the green bookshelf or something like that, and you're going to get that opportunity. You can almost bank on it. In most games, that's going to be there. So if you hang out there for a while, you might get that chance. By the way, Twitch chat asking about civilian shot rates on Ballroom. Not that as high as you would think. It's about 23.4% of the time on Ballroom do you get a civilian shot, which is only a little more than Courtyard, for example, and higher than Modern and Library as a point of comparison. So a little higher for sure, but not as high as you'd think. It all evens out when you play enough games, I guess. But one of the things we're going to examine tonight is whether or not it changes across divisions.
Right. And one thing that we're going to mention a lot during the cast tonight, I'm not going to belabor it too much, is that this is one of the most dynamic maps as far as cover that we have in the game. Maybe the most, because this is OG Soji is when we had just conversations moving back and forth where you'd get sometimes a bad layout where it's kind of like weather patterns. I actually really wish I had a Hummus's Telestrator at this point, where I could make like these weather patterns where like you can see the CCs that are sort of developing. And so like right now, that CC on the far right, although it actually just had a bunch of people bust out of it, will probably stick around for a while. So you know that green bookshelf is going to have pretty decent cover because it's going to be covered from just about every angle except the outside angle,
Yes.
which
Yes.
snipers will tend to not really go over there too much. It's really dangerous for them to do that, especially with Ambassador over on the left side. But
and look at that spot next to Teal. Kind of
yes.
related to what you're saying. You're saying there's microfilm cover. That's true. But the ambassador thing I mentioned means that if you go hang out next to Teal right now, if the ambassador at any point decides to go to that painting pad, to the green bookshelf, to either of those windows, maybe the far spot in the front conversation, they might walk around behind you and you're going to get a chance at that bug with a lot of cover.
Exactly. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and start moving on again from 216, and I'm just
Okay.
going to go. So
We
right
can't say
now,
3, 2, 1 playing it every time. That wouldn't work.
exactly, and we're not going to care too much about staying linked. Like, Ambassador goes back to center statue at this point. So
Ooh, see, that's tempting, right?
it is right.
Well, so there's an interesting choice here. So you can go to center statues, but you're going to need to hit some green tests then if you want to get inspects done and get the fingerprint. That's an underrated part of this. It's not automatic. You're going to need a green or two. On the other hand, you could take that side statue, which was where the first fingerprint came from, and hope that the sniper doesn't just highlight everyone who went to statues and assume they're all done with inspect, right? That's what they might do. But if they're sharp about it, if you feel the sniper's sharp, they're going to know you only went once, and they might be waiting for you to go that second time to finish before they shoot, and you never go because you were only there for the fingerprint.
And we are going for the big fingerprint and center statue. This is going to be a huge highlight on us. Probably, or we're going to be probably the top suspect after this, but that's okay. So one of the big branches that you have to decide as spy is whether or not you're okay with finishing as top suspect, but you trust them not to shoot. We might even just like swap here, just in the moment of panic. No. So obviously,
2 greens. They hit 2 greens. That's why that was possible.
yes. Okay.
Huge.
Oh, and the other thing about we actually might have gone for a bug there. We took the path, and I don't know if our arm would have been seen. Actually, I'm gonna go back to that because we were slow casting.
That was all the risk of a bug path, or most of the risk of a bug path without actually taking it.
Right.
And by the way, you have a chance at a silent game there. Even if you're a big suspect, I don't know. That's a pretty tempting bug.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, if you are playing even relatively behaviorally at this point, like if somebody just went to center statues, they flirted, they fingerprinted at least once if you didn't catch the first fingerprint, and they go to a conversation and immediately BB, that's a big dangerous play that you've made. This is also the dangerous part on Ballroom. I'm gonna go ahead and stop for a second here. Ballroom is one of the most nerve-wracking maps for me to finish on, especially between 30 seconds and a minute, because that's like the sweet spot for spies that are rushing, or I want to say like aggressive, but not rushing. If you straight if we had swapped instead of just doing fingerprint and inspected that center statue, but like a nice solid clip for a spy, they try to finish between I want to say 20 seconds and a minute. On Ballroom, and
you're closer than you think. I have data on this actually.
Oh, really? Okay.
So in all SCL games, the spy uses up about 78% of their clock until the game is over, and it's a little different with Ballroom. But if you apply that to Ballroom, that means your average spy is finishing with a little under a minute left. It's if you exclude that, if you don't just apply the average to Ballroom, but if you go for Ballroom specifically, it's about 46 seconds is when a spy finishes on Ballroom. And that, anecdotally, as soon as I read that, I thought, yeah, I absolutely believe that. That's almost exactly what I would have guessed. 40 seconds to a minute is when you are looking for finishers as the sniper. That's when anything a suspicious character does could very plausibly be the last thing they do. It's also why if you swap at 1:30 or something like that and finish the inspect at the same time, that's why that could be so potentially powerful, because you're 30 or 40 seconds away maybe from the standard spy finish time.
Yeah, and okay, so going back to this specific game and the choices we were making, we happened to get pretty quick fingerprints, pretty quick inspects, and we got 2 green flirts when we went for that last statue. But we kind of burned time after that. So there's kind of a trade-off, obviously. We haven't been doing much in the last 30 seconds except for that bug path. I do really think that the bug path, you put it correct, it was all the risk of a bug path without the actual reward of a bug path, where right now we could have been credited with the bug, and then maybe they think we didn't do the fingerprint or something like that. So if the double agent goes off, we're going to be kind of in a tough spot. Now, that said, we're not actually high-lit, but...
Yeah, we're not high-lit, and I'm actually going to correct myself. I don't mind what I said about taking that bug when I said it, but now that I look at the sniper cam, they were staring at it. It was really visible. They were very... I kind of mentioned earlier that you're looking more at someone who's kind of making a beeline for the ambassador, as opposed to the ambassador coming up to them, and I think that's what happened here. If you look at the sniper's reaction, they had such a good view of it. I feel like they were guarding it specifically, and that's significant because before that, and maybe this is why they weren't paying attention to the statue visit, they were really worried about that guest list, because there were highlights taking it. General was nearby, for example. But when the actual character is walking by the ambassador and possibly thinking about that bug, the sniper seems at that moment, because I think it's between Toby tray put downs, they're really watching the bug very closely.
Indeed. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and pick back up where we're at 35 seconds, and I'm just going to go. All right, so last mission. Now, obviously, we would be leaning towards banana bread finish. But sometimes... All right, so if we're in a calculation right now where we think we might be top suspect, we should probably assume we're doing a top suspect. We did center statue, fingerprints, seduction probably didn't get a heat for. But, I think we're actually going to go for this bug on the way in. And it's enough.
Yep.
So let's look at the other options that we had at the end of it. So one, going for something, going for a win, is definitely laudable, but kind of an awkward path in there, and just in general. What are the other options we had? So we had let's take ourselves to the 30-second mark. All right, so we had 4 missions done. Toby is being watched pretty closely. Purloin's probably not the best call. Transfer is going to be real hard at this stage of the game, so I'm just going to knock that out. Swap, there haven't been a lot of people at statues that I believe this game, which has been kind of a problem for SpedMonkey in this one. So it's going to be hard for a swap that could plausibly be a green swap, for example, because there just hasn't been given anything. So I guess it's just between contact, bug. Yeah, it's pretty much between contact and bug at that point, and maybe you could get away with a purloin.
Yeah, so I'm at 30 seconds. I think we have pretty much the same angle here. And the really significant thing about the shot you're looking at right now, everyone, is the top right corner where the double agent is not just out of conversation, but clearly headed for bookshelves. So there's going to be a delay, and it'd be very risky at this point to just kind of hope they get back in. I also think, though, that if you're going to bug, you go in on the other side of the ambassador.
Yeah.
At the end. You might get caught anyway because, as I mentioned earlier, Tabsies was clearly just camping the living daylights out of Purloin and then Bug alternately. And maybe is probably why SpedMonkey wasn't even highlight, frankly.
Yeah. All right. Well, so that was a case of, let's see. So we had when was our third mission done? Our third mission got done at a minute and 13 seconds. And so let's see. I guess we made two things. Okay. Also, during Slowcast, we are a little bit more. We're critical in a sense that we are trying to figure out better ways that we would have This is the exact same set of tone I would adopt towards my own replays, and I often make mistakes like that. And we get the benefit of talking through it really slowly, and not only really slowly, but not under the pressure. So in no way are we trying to be mean to the spy or to call them foolish or in any way, unless we're casting noob this set, which I don't think we are. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, we're not. Well, I'm actually gonna defend SpedMonkey a little bit too. Obviously, I think should have bugged on the other side, and you could say should have contacted earlier in the game. That's true. But when I look at the double agent's motion throughout this game, until about a minute 30, they had been in conversation for 8 seconds total.
Oh wow.
They went into one conversation in the first couple minutes of the game, and they left after basically one idle cycle. At about 125, I think it is, they kind of get into that far back conversation. They hang out for about 30 seconds. And that's significant because at that point, SpedMonkey does at one point, let's see, when they take that bug path by the ambassador is in the conversation with the double agent. If they enter that conversation instead in BB, the game is over. That was the choice, actually, that swung this game, is walking by the ambassador and just sort of laying low as opposed to entering the conversation with the double agent, because that was the only stretch. It was actually about close to a minute there where the double agent was in, and then they leave, and then at that point, you might not have any more time the rest of the game. But up until that point, up until 1:30 on the clock, 8 seconds in conversation. So they didn't have any chances to BB early, but they did have a chance there after the inspect fingerprint. I think it's kind of what you said, though. They didn't want to go from such a high threat site right to banana bread for the finish.
Right. That feels so much like a spy maneuver, and also not only a spy maneuver, but a spy that's signaling they're done, where it's not even just like a banana bread that's just being tossed out in the middle of the game. It's a signal that they're actually completed. Actually, it's the same thing that happens to me if I see a swap on Ballroom. I will often think, especially if it's in the middle of the game, I think they're rushing, basically, and I push myself into trying to shoot more often because I mean, no one likes to not finish, right? Not finish with swap, that is.
Right. No, and it makes sense to lean into things like swap when you're trying to rush. And you're right. So it would have been suspicious. I still think it would have been the better move, the BB there, but it would have been happening with a little less than a minute left, which means we're well within that normal window of when spies normally finish. That sort of timing that all the snipers get in their bones after just a few hundred games. So I think at that point, look, there wasn't going to be a clean way to win when you went to center statues and picked up a fingerprint and you were so aggressive about the other fingerprint too. The fact that you two-flirted helps a little bit. But, you were going to be top suspect. The question is, were they really going to shoot you? And if you weren't even highlit for statues, I got to say no.
All right, well, I'm loading up the next game. I also forgot to change the league of that game, which I should be doing because that's kind of the point. We are moving up the leagues from, that was Challenger, and thank you very much to SpedMonkey and who was the other player? Tabsies?
Tabsies, yeah.
Yes, thank you very much. And I have not actually seen them play before. And also, annoyingly so most, that looked like a pretty normal game of Spy Party. There weren't any huge mistakes, like you said. They made a choice that makes sense about they didn't want to rush the BB, and then DA left, and then they made like they could have done a slightly better
Bug,
execution
yeah.
on the bug, but
Right.
really the decision making was all there. We didn't see something that was spies just not knowing any idea what they're doing. Challengers already looking like a really solid spy play. So
I totally agree. A lot of the high level decisions were just fine, and I think a pretty clean game, all in all. Certainly, yeah. But I do think it's super interesting how the quality of the sniper, or what you perceive the quality of the sniper to be, affects those choices. Because I mentioned that decision: do you go to center statues, do you go to side statues, right? Do you trust them to know the difference? Things like that. And I think the fact that they actually got missed, maybe potentially at statues entirely, means that it kind of was the right move to do the high suspicion thing.
right, I wonder
Because
if
yeah.
one thing that you could probably determine is that they might not have had anything go over to them when they went to the statue. Laser never moved over them. But honestly, if I was spy at that point, I would have assumed that was a stealth highlight earlier and be even more nervous. Because not going to a center statue with a fingerprint and not getting highlight makes me think that I'm already a top suspect, or maybe even a low light.
Yeah, you can't assume for sure. But we know we can tell from the sniper cam, just really worried about the purloin basically that whole time.
Yeah.
So
All
the actual
right.
mission choices were mostly right. I think if you BB instead of bug, you will have avoided the two missions they were camping the most.
That's a great point. So that's also something we should talk about during this the Slowcast. Is the four missions they chose to do made total sense because they were going for a non-shot game. Those missions that they chose to do don't leave traces at all. So they chose to do the ones that would make the sniper the least likely to shoot. They'd have to see something in the
Yep.
moment to make them want to shoot, or deduce down to the spy through flirts or inspects or
And all soft tells. I mean,
exactly.
I'm sorry, that's pop. I mean, that's strong at any level. I actually said this on a cast before. I think it was a couple other challenger players or something. If I were mismatched, if I were up against someone with like 600 games or something, but they were getting pretty good already, and I had to beat them once as spy to save my life, I would almost certainly play a soft tell game, and
That's
I would
right.
just dare them to make that tough shot.
That sounds right. Okay, so we are now on to Yiglini versus Infamous Cupcake.
Uglini, I'm pretty sure it's
Yiglini?
just Uglini.
Yiglini. And we have Yiglini as general on Ballroom, as we'll be doing all day. I need to get rid of that habit. Versus Infamous Cupcake on Sniper. And I believe that's it. I think if there's anything I need to set up in between games because we're switching between
Nope.
games so often. All right, starting in 3, 2, 1, go.
Yeah, mission choice definitely a big deal. And I feel like I almost shouldn't even say this while I'm still a competitor, but I've actually told people, I've advised people, what do you want to? They'll ask what I should focus on sometimes, and I say, you know what? On a lot of venues, if you sell out in terms of hardtails on bug and purloin, you're usually going to get the hardtail. There are certain games where you can basically just pretend microfilm doesn't exist, and you're not going to get burned for it.
Right.
If you had to pick two hardtails to just camp at the expense of all the others, bug and purloin, because they are the two best, they are the two easiest to get away with, and the spies know that, and the spies are going to keep doing them even though they know you know that.
Yeah, the thing about microfilm, just in general, is it takes so much time that you basically need to be using it in between your flirts. Otherwise, it's a lot of
Yes.
time you're putting in. So even if you don't catch the microfilm, you might catch them being desperate from going mission site to mission site to do the other parts of their four missions.
Yeah, sometimes you can get away with a microfilm, and suddenly you're rushing the flirt at the end of the game, and that just feels terrible. It requires really good pacing. It's one of the reasons that KCM is one of the only players I think who gets away with it regularly and actually wins because his pacing is so good. So it's particularly if you're a newer spy, it just feels really brutal. On the other hand, if you're a newer spy, you're probably up against a newer sniper, which means you can probably just do the book dump, which does not take as long.
I'm gonna pause for a second, and I'm just gonna ask you a question about whether or not you feel like BB is a good decision at this particular moment. It's really tough.
Ooh.
So I'm at
Okay.
like 215 ish, 214 ish. It's
Yeah.
about the same.
Yeah, I'm right there. Okay. Yep.
So it's
Okay.
a
So
tough
let's
call
see.
for me. I'm like, because it's a few scattered conversations. DA is probably going to be in one of them. You're in a DA with you have at least three other people in your conversation. So at the
Yep.
very least, you're down to three people that have done it.
This is a great question because there's actually a ton. Do you have a nice high view of the whole party here?
Yeah.
Yeah, get the whole thing in there. Get up real high if you can. So there are competing reasons to like or not like this right now. My instinct, my gut, and I actually made a point to just glance at the party and answer with my gut because that's how I would have to answer in a real game, right? Regardless of the Slowcast thing. Is if I just glanced around the party as the spy when I have a second to decide, is this a good time to BB? What would I decide? And my first thought was, nah, I don't think so, not quite. And now that I'm taking the slow high level view, I can try to figure out why my gut said that. And it said that for a few reasons. One is that 5 people are out of conversation. And they're out of conversation sometimes not near any conversation where they could have done a real BB. So, for example, they're not in a conversation by themselves, but it's right next to a full one, so maybe they split, right? There are 2 people at bookshelves, and there are 2 at painting pads. And by the way, the 2 at painting pads, white dress and boots, they're on the edge of the painting pads too. They're even like squished up against the wall. They're not near full conversations. You're going to be so confident. One of them's slow. You're going to be so confident as the sniper that neither of them could have split, even if you didn't get a good snapshot of the party. So you're going to, the sniper, even like an intermediate sniper, she looks like she's trying to make out with that picture of the general.
No kidding.
It's incredible. Everyone's got a type, I guess. So they're probably going to get almost all those low lights with high confidence. And that's too many for Ballroom. That's a little above the over-under, which I would put between 2 and 3, maybe 3 and 4. So that's one reason not to do it for sure. The other reason is that yours is the only big conversation. The other conversations have 2 people and 3 people. So even if an SDA is in one of those, and they might not be because so many people are out of conversation, but even if they are, at most, you're adding 2 more people to your conversation who could have done a real BB. And that is not a lot. The only argument for it is that yours is the full conversation. So you know for a fact that, well, you're full. I say full, but the ambassador is one of them too. So no, this is a bad BB. Yeah, I've convinced myself completely. I think my gut instinct was right. It's a bad BB for all those reasons.
All right. And so I'm kind of segueing that in more general terms. And I promise I'm going to be saying general a lot, and it is never a pun. Never, ever, ever a pun.
I wasn't going to bring it up until you did, but now we're just going to have to. We're all going to notice it all the time now.
Right. Is early BBs in general on Ballroom, which a lot of people don't like because Ballroom was one of the most fair, I'd say, like BBs. It's actually, I actually like a lot of maps. BBs basically free. Courtyard, easiest map or easiest mission on any map in the game, except for arguably like Balcony, because you can more easily get everybody in a conversation. It's insane. Like it's just basically a gimme on Courtyard, but still everything else is so hard on Courtyard that it makes up for it.
Yeah, right.
But Ballroom actually has a pretty vicious BB. There's not a ton of people on this map. What is there, like 16? I want to say on New Art is the standard now.
Yeah.
So there'll be
15. I think 15 now, right?
15, really.
I think there's 15 here. Right?
I wish there's a couple more, but that's not a that. But so knocking out 5 out of that is a huge slice out of the population. Yes. Where Veranda, I like your use of the term over under. Veranda over under on 5 is it's about right.
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Well, it's not just it's not just that. So here's an underappreciated part of the over-under. So first of all, there's just the how many lowlights would you trade for the banana bread right now, right? And then there's the other thing I alluded to, which is how many would have a real versus not if they decide to assume real or if they highlight for real, right? So anyone who's in with an SDA, that can screw you sometimes. You can have 2 or 3 people out, but like literally only 5, only one conversation could have had a real one because one of the SDAs is out of conversation, or maybe even both of the other ones, right? That's the other consideration there. The third thing is based on party movement and or venue, which are obviously related. It'll depend. How confident will the sniper be in those lowlights? Because in Veranda, even if 5 or 6 people are technically out of conversation, the odds that the sniper is going to be able to lowlight them with 100% confidence are really low because there are so many ways to like duck out of conversations into the next conversation, into books, into windows, whatever. So much occlusion. But in Ballroom, you can get a pretty good snapshot. Not great, but pretty good. So the lowlights, like on Courtyard, for example, you can take that mental snapshot sometimes, and as long as no one's directly behind the statue in the center, for example, they can get most of their lowlights. So it's not just how many people are out, because computer is not doing the lowlights. It's not like the tutorial where it shows you how many people could have been lowlight. The question is, how many are they actually going to get with confidence? It's not the same thing.
All right. Well, I was about to allude to more things, but I'm probably going to try to keep myself to like 1 or 2 tangents per pause. So let's go ahead and get started again at 2:14. Going now.
Yeah, sorry, a few of those tangents were mine in this case. And you were talking just a little bit about banana bread frequency, yeah. So like across all Ballroom games, the 1,462 SCL Ballroom games I've mentioned, although who knows if more have been uploaded since I started saying that, Contact is the most completed mission. Do you want to guess what percentage of the time it gets completed?
On Ballroom,
Last time I asked you to
60,
guess something like this, you actually came really close, I remember.
68.
63. Good job.
Ah.
Very good. And that's the most completed. That's the most completed by a pretty significant margin.
So we did end up going with the BB, and I was about to say one of the weird things is that
How many lowlights came off?
Yeah.
Should we check this?
So yeah, actually, let's go back and we can also talk about snipers too. I know we tend to focus on spies during these ones because they're underappreciated, but
Yep.
But also the odd thing that happened right after is that Teal got a low light immediately, and she was actually one of the few people in a conversation with. She was the only person in a conversation with the DA that wasn't in that big conversation, but they got brought up later. So, anyways, let's go ahead and check the.
Well, actually, I hate to cut you off, but that's actually something I forgot to mention. I remember I was like, I had one more thing to say, but I can't remember what it was. What I was going to say was, yeah, one of the SDAs is in with one other person. And that is such a bad BB that the spy hates to take it unless they're deliberately doing it because it's counterintuitive and they might get a low light, which is what happened. So that's actually a pretty understandable low light. Also, Infamous Cupcake got all the low lights we were discussing that were out, in addition to taking Teal as a speculative low light, although bumps are back up afterwards, so thinks better of it. But the 5 possible low lights I mentioned, if I'm looking right, I think they got every single one of them.
Yes, do believe so, and they're the exact 5 that we mentioned before. And I didn't even know that they were going to BB. For some reason, just the way that Iglini was looking around the camera, I look around the party when I'm about to BB like that. So I just felt like a BB was coming, which is what popped into my mind.
Good
but
call.
I don't think actually it was a good call to anticipate, but I think it was a bad BB because now we are one of very few people.
Right. So the thing is, you've played enough that you recognized it as a situation where a spy will ask themselves, should I BB here? Obviously, you might have decided, I don't know what you decided in game. I'd like to think you probably would have decided not to. I probably would have decided not to. That was my first inclination. But that doesn't mean you don't recognize it as a moment for assessment. There are a lot of times in each game where I'll think I should look around briefly and decide whether or not to BB, which is what you did. That's what went off in your head. That's why you decided to ask, even though you didn't know a BB was coming off, because it looked like that kind of moment to you where a spy would consider BBing, whether they do it or not. Maybe the difference between a newer player and experienced player is they will entertain that idea, but not always accept it.
I was just about to say that is a great measure of a spy is ability to turn down bad impulses. Now, there's actually sort of like a trade-off in general on characteristics. The best spies would be able to do both of these things, but sometimes you need to be able to entertain a thought that's really bold and unexpected, but you might get shot, but you're basically going all in, and you need to be able to have the confidence to do that sometimes and not just be worried about getting shot. But also you need to just not follow through on every impulse. So one thing that I'm also going to highlight here, I'm at 58 seconds, is I think we're going to be in trouble based upon going to a side statue at this point in the game. We got 58 seconds left. We are cornering ourselves into a second statue visit if we want to finish in specs. That's going to be tough in the last minute if we're not going to be doing something like swap at the end. I feel like we're kind of boxing ourselves in here. For a lot of snipers, there's really not that much difference between a center statue and a side statue. So unless you are planning on swapping later, a center statue might honestly just have been better at this point.
I absolutely agree. And there's something else we forgot to mention about the BB. There's so many layers to that decision. One of them is that we hadn't visited statues yet, and we hadn't done a hardtail yet. So you were going to narrow down the party by a third before you've done anything particularly suspicious or risky.
Right. And one thing that I was going to say is, and this has been happening a lot in Plat, I'm not going to say who, but this just happens a lot in Platinum, is medium bad BBs into bug specifically. So the other thing that just was screaming at me when I saw that BB was all those juicy, obvious lowlights that you just love to take was how you could have just walked out of the conversation and bugged right there and probably just been invisible at that point because they were obviously going to take those lowlights.
Right. So this is where the division, I think, for the first time tonight really matters. Because if that happened to me in a diamond game, and I suspect even in a silver or gold game, depending on the opponent, the sniper would not rush to take those lowlights. They would be unbelievably suspicious about the timing of that banana bread. They'd see those lowlights and think, okay, too good to be true. what's going on here? This is a trick. There's a crash bug coming. There's a purloin being covered for. There's a swap being distracted from, whatever. But an oak, it's totally plausible. And again, that's not a denigration. These are actually shockingly good players. They're way better than I was at that game count. Let me just get that out of the way right now. And I think you'll probably agree the same was true for you.
Oh, no, I absolutely agree that these players are way better than you were at this game count.
And probably still are. Yeah. Maybe I'm not the best example. But if I saw that number of lowlights on Ballroom at that point in the game, I don't know if I would take them right away. I would be super nervous that something was being covered for. If, on the other hand, I was just kind of like sparring against someone, maybe with like 800 games, I would just take the lowlights probably.
Right.
I'd still check, but I'd be much more willing to believe, and obviously that'd be the right decision based on what we saw actually happen, much more willing to believe that that was just a banana bread straight up, just to get the mission done and not to cover for anything at all. But yeah, you are offering, and I still can't wait to write about this at some point. Every banana bread is a trade potentially with the sniper. You are trading lowlights for a mission and for inattention from them for a little bit. Everyone understands that you're trading a mission for the lowlights potentially. You get that pretty quickly. What they don't realize is that you can trade it for a window of inattention from the sniper also while they get those lowlights and while they react to the banana bread, while you're in their head, because the banana bread is the one thing you can put in their head other than like beeps from time ads or something like that, right? It's your chance to manipulate the sniper. And that's why people love to do it so much, because it's the one way the spy can mess with the sniper rather than the other way around. So if you do a really bad banana bread on purpose, and they take that deal, so to speak, and start, gathering up all those lowlights, like a bunch of money that's been dropped on the floor, you can just rush the ambassador sometimes and get away with a bug. And they know you can do that. And they'll still take the lowlights potentially if you offer them a good enough trade in the number of lowlights.
Very true. And then to dovetail on that point real quick, if you do that, remind yourself of what the coherent play is at that level. If you are giving them a trade where you are doing another mission, but you are reducing the party further, you are almost certainly going to be going for a top suspect but low threat finish, where you just slide under their threshold for shooting because you've just accomplished the bug. Basically, what I'm saying is you could go to center statue after that or something like that and not get shot. If you took the, let's say, the bug after the banana bread and you had seduction complete, is you can go straight from, you can go through the bug and just go to center statue. They don't want to shoot yet because they have so few suspects left that they probably are pretty comfortable with the idea that they can just wait for someone to do something, one of their few suspects do something, because now they're going to be lasering their attention in on that person.
Right. This is where the clock actually matters a lot too. If you see something like that early on, it changes the likelihood that it's covering for something. If it's at the very end of the game, you really can't afford to take a couple extra lowlights or squeeze out all the lowlights you can get from it. Get all 6 rather than 3 or 4 maybe of the quick ones. Because if they bug, maybe they're done and you have 10 seconds and it's over. And what do the lowlights get you? Nothing. In the beginning of the game, however, that's going to ripple throughout the rest of the game. Even if they crash bug afterwards and get away with it, then the party's way cut down. And hopefully you realize they might have been covering for something and they still have to get a couple more things done under your nose. So when it happens in the game also should factor in to how much attention you want to pay to like hardtail mission sites in the wake of what looks like a bad banana bread.
Very true. All right. I'm going to start up the replay again at 1 minute.
Okay.
So right now we've kind of locked ourselves into inspecting again if we want to finish the inspects. I'm not the biggest fan of our position at this point. Let's see, from this spot, what would I do? I guess I'd probably bug into another statue visit at some point. We almost certainly can't do a fingerprint. Ambassador's not going anywhere. Purloin is the other option. Microfilm's probably not going to happen with this few people to watch. And we go for the bug, but Ambassador moves at just the worst time.
Yeah, they were lining up the bug, and the ambassador hadn't moved for like a minute and a half, and then just when they start to move, the ambassador moves too.
So we do go to this statue. So we pick up a statue that unfortunately is probably the easiest statue in the map to see a swap on. So we'll see what happens. Yeah. All right. So that was. I like this game because I think the outcome was a bit predictable given what we saw near the end of it. Like that. So one. I think we made the right decision about we had to get 2 missions done at the 15-second point. So I'm going to do like a sort of like a reverse decision tree. So at 15 seconds, we had to do this. We had to swap at a statue, right? The decision before that was what statue do we go to? I would have not. This is the worst statue to go to, I think.
Yes.
Even the statue that's crammed all the way up in the corner, if you stand pretty far, the sniper has to sell out pretty hard to see that swap. Now they probably will still use. It's not a great position, but this is gifting them something by giving them this sort of angle on the statue.
One little caveat about that: you're absolutely right. It's the worst one, and obviously the obvious counter argument would be, well, if it's obvious, then they're not going to watch it, right? Who would swap there? Counterplay, Yomi, blah blah blah. But that's not true late in the game. Late in the game, panicky things happen. Late in the game, they're going to be watching that site. So the counterintuitive swap at the most obvious statue, if there were ever going to be an argument for that, and I think it would be pretty weak to begin with, but it would happen in like the middle of the game or the beginning of the game or something when they have no reason to look. Not at the end of the game when they're specifically looking for who's finishing.
Yes. So I'm gonna follow this decision tree until I find like what I consider like at least a 50-50, because I still don't think that decision would have gotten us 50-50. So because we kind of cornered ourselves. We also spent very little time on that pad, but that's something different. So what was they had their big decision? So I guess it's when we went for the bug, but it's really not our fault the ambassador moves. They're not getting forced out at that time. So I think the decision to go for the bug at that point was good, and maybe we should have just tried harder for it, like paths with them or something.
I mean, I think the problem is that they go to Windows to steel themselves and muster up the courage to go for the bug. I guess they didn't want to go statue into bug into finish statues or something, but that's the natural path sort of there, is to do it from behind with a general's good walking bug, and you're taking a bug path, but the actual arm's probably not going to be very visible, and then you're just going to finish right there at inspects, and it's pretty rough, but here's the thing, you're going to be a suspect no matter what, and when you imagine the bug they'd be theoretically taking after Windows, was it going to be any better than the one they'd be taking going statue to statue? I don't think spacing it out with a 8-second window visit is actually reducing heat, which is the only reason to do it, right? You don't want to go mission site, mission site, mission site. I just don't feel like it makes any sense to space it out a very, very, very tiny bit like that.
I think you're absolutely correct, and I also want to specifically pick up on the thing you said, to go to Windows to steel yourself to do something. That is such a spy maneuver, and I'm incredibly guilty of it. Where I go to a useless pad just to muster up the courage to do it. I hate going for
Decide what to do. I mean,
exactly.
Yeah, if we're going to be more charitable, like I say, muster up the courage, like, they're afraid. So that's definitely a thing. I mean, that's the thing for me sometimes too. But let's be charitable and say it's to decide, right? To think, to try to clear your head and make a good decision. That'd be the better reason to do it. But that's the difference, right? Between different skill levels, is that a better spy, I think, would not need to pause and think about that. They're at statues finishing up their inspect. They're eyeing the ambassador already, and they're already deciding, looking at the clock, that they're just going to immediately bug afterwards or not.
Yeah. Okay. I'm comfortable with saying that's the node that we got ourselves into the real trouble with. And
Yes.
one thing I'm also gonna say is this is also something I'm true. You don't need to think about inspects. You really don't. Like especially within 2 inspects, and we 2 cycled anyways. The only thing you even barely need to pay attention to is making sure you get the action test. But you shouldn't be looking at statues at all. You shouldn't be thinking about inspects. You should just be clicking to finish the mission and then thinking about your next move is. And bugging on the way out was probably the best call from that spot. I still don't like going
from that point forward.
Yeah.
And I like that, by the way, making the distinction of what would be the best move from this point forward, because you're going to make bad decisions sometimes. The question is, do they compound or not? And at any point, does your next decision increase or decrease the likelihood of you winning this game? Because you can make a mistake, and then from there, you're trying to salvage, and that's fine. We've all been in that position. But the best spies will bring those games back because they'll make nothing but good decisions sometimes after the mistake. And to echo what you're saying about not thinking about the inspects, there are certainly exceptions. Action tests can be really important when you're trying to swap at the end, fingerprint, whatever, trying to get 3 inspects done. This is no fingerprint. You're not thinking about swapping, and it's a side statue. So you have plenty of time. You can ignore the action tests. You can do nothing but think about your next move while that's going on.
All right. Well, I think I'm done with this one.
Yep.
I'll move on to the next.
Yeah, so this is Obsidian, the newly created Obsidian, and I think we're already going to see a fairly big uptick here. I mean, again, I want to caveat, these are all really, really damn impressive. But if we're just judging them relatively in terms of skill, I think you start to see a bit of a ramp up right around Obsidian, at least with parts of the division. These divisions are bigger. There are 13 people, so you'll get more variance within the division. Whereas, if you look at Gold and above, they're all 6 people. So there's usually less of a gradation in skills there. But I think in these bigger divisions, you get much more.
All right. Well, we're jumping into Obsidian and starting right now. So far we've seen, I believe, two. Oh, here we go. So as I say, I kind of hoping for a different opener for once, because we've seen two flirt openers. Even I think flirt before any other mission. But we go straight to center statue. So what do we do in this position where? Oh, I don't know if we're gonna get that. We're not gonna get the other inspect done, are we? That's gonna make a big difference. Okay, so
Oh boy.
okay, so that's a significantly different game based upon what just happened there.
Yes.
All right, so we are gonna have to visit statues at some other point. Now the thing is, okay, so I'm gonna actually even pause right here. If this just happened to you, although it happened to you, of course you would have always inspect the other one first and be always correct. But let's pretend that you ever make mistakes.
Well, hang on. Let's not glide over that. That's obvious to us, so we're probably thinking like, "Oh, barely even mention it." But if the whole idea here is to draw these, conclusions and to teach newer players what's going on, yeah, always inspect a statue you're not holding first, because the one you're holding will still be in your hands and no one can block it, whereas someone can come along and block your inspects. If you want to try to get really fancy, and I try to do this, but it's hard, but it's a slight uptick in percentage likelihood of winning. Try to see who's approaching from what side and who's most likely to come over and screw up your day. Sometimes you can guess, oh, the left statue is much more likely to be picked up in the next 5 seconds than the right one. It's saved me games sometimes. It's a very small advantage, but it's something. So might as well try. You're just standing there anyway. But always inspect the ones you're not holding first. Absolutely.
Yeah, and in this position, do we go for the salvage play of going statue to statue? Because we're high lit, right? We're high lit.
Yeah.
The sniper probably already assumes that we finished inspects, and so sometimes we'll get the Hail Mary, so suspicious is not suspicious, but actually we just messed up the statue priority.
Yeah. I don't know. I would say at the minimum you want to flirt first because, here's your first flirt. You're actually not even next to them, it looks like. So you're not going to be able to two flirt anyway, which is probably a bit of an error. I wouldn't worry about flirt pairing at this point in the game. It's not even the first thing you've done. But before we move on to that decision, I want to point out why they maybe went to statues right away. They didn't just get dumped there. They chose to go to statues. And they probably chose to do it because from their perspective, there were two people on the other statues immediately. So there's a nice bit of distraction already. Pretty good argument for a swap, actually. And a third person taking a drink right next to them at a painting pad. What they didn't know is that one of those people's statues is an SDA. That's general, though. The spy will not know that. So they probably thought, wow, statue rush, early drink take. Why not just go in and get some stuff done on my own? It all happens around the same time. I guess Boots comes in a little bit late. But there's a big pile up at paintings. General's at statues. Boots is right behind him. We're kind of close anyway. I guess I'm a little surprised that they didn't go for the swap, actually, all told.
That's very true, and in particular, knowing when you can do a swap rush, because like the thing is, even swap rush existing as a strategy, which is very rare. It's a very rare strategy, but it makes me paranoid as hell as a sniper sometimes if I can't get my eyes on a statue.
Yep. Most of the value is that it could have happened. It could have happened 10 times as often as it does happen. It's kind of like time ads in that regard, sort of, where time ads don't normally win you the game in terms of using the time, but they do make the sniper tunnel and shoot the wrong person. It's mostly psychological in the sniper. Yeah, that's absolutely right. You think of how often as a sniper you think, I might have missed that swap, or I'm not totally sure I memorized that statue before they got there. And then think of how many times you lost to a mission win, then look back and that's what happened. It's so rare, right?
Yeah.
Although it's funny, it happened to me exactly once this season. Kletos did it to me, and he did it as Seek on Ballroom.
So you're getting a little bit of flashbacks, or maybe
a little bit. And I remember specifically thinking, well, I guess he could have rushed there, but I was like, nah, I think I saw it in time. And then he just played a nice clean game after, and he won. And I was like, well, okay, I made my bed. But yeah, this is. I think it would have been an interesting choice. You have a tall character too, so.
That's right. Okay, so I am going back to the spot that I was at. All right, so we're gonna be going from. So now this kind of turned into a normal game. Now the big problem is that we are a significant highlight. But the thing is, we're gonna go to statues later. Ooh, so one thing that's interesting is that we could go to center statue with a fingerprint. But that's like one of the few reasons someone who was at center statues would visit a statue later.
Yeah. I think it's got to be okay. I think it makes sense to do it anyway, especially if you can let that sit for a while. Look, you know what you're getting into when you go to statues that early. I don't think it's a big deal.
Looks like a pretty decent banana bread opportunity.
Banana bread.
One more person does bail, but it's actually not too bad.
Do we want to pause and analyze this too, or do you just feel good summarizing it is probably pretty good?
I'm comfortable with summarizing as pretty good. Now it happens
it does
that
look
it
good.
has a lot of the highlights are in conversation, so it just works out small ones in there. I am gonna go back for a second and see if Boots is in there. The banana bread goes off right here. She is not in a conversation, so Boots should have been a highlight, or sorry, been a low light. But other than that, pretty good banana bread.
Yeah, well, let me see when it goes off. Jeez, I'm actually kind of curious how many lowlights were available. Let's see, an SDA, no. Yeah, Boots. There's a lone Duke too. Four available. And how many come off? I see
Like one.
One. Is that it? And it's like 20 seconds later. So Alt F4 actually like kind of remembers who's there, or kind of remembers who's there. Actually, it might not even be for the same thing. It might just be for idling. I don't even know. So they don't even take the lowlights, is really what happens. Wow, that's totally different. So in Oak, we saw them take all the lowlights, and they were easier than normal lowlights, we mentioned, but got them all, every single one of them. And it wasn't covering for anything, but if it had been, it might have worked. In this case, Alt F4 gets one lowlight 20 seconds later, and it might not even been for that. And there were 4 available, and I think 2 of them were highlights, Orange Sari and Boot/Buns, who was one of those early statue visitors. So I'm kind of surprised. Alt F4 not going after the lowlights, and most players at this experience level are prioritizing that.
Yeah, and Orange Sari would have been a big high or a big low light to get because she's in specs plus fingerprint.
Yeah, yeah. And speaking of which, it looks like Headhunter goes for a difficult fingerprint at green shelves right afterwards and does not get it. Yeah,
but
and that's huge, right? Do we want to talk about that real quick? Let's see. What time does that happen? That happens 1:29.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with just saying. Well, I guess actually that's something we should just nail in.
Just a little bit, yeah.
Might as well
Because
fish
this
for
is
this.
an inflection point, right, in the game. And I feel like that way about basically every difficult fingerprint. Difficult fingerprints are an uncertain thing. You can go to center statues and you can basically say, "I'm going to get inspects." You can almost always go and get a banana bread, although how good or bad it'll be will depend on other things. You can basically decide when to bug. You can decide when to get a fingerprint for the most part. Sometimes people will beat you to the object or whatever, right? There are some exceptions, but you have a lot of control over that kind of thing. You don't know if you're going to green purloin or white, but you can still decide when to purloin. You don't know whether you're going to green purloin or white swap, for example. Same kind of thing. But fingerprint is a little different because you need a second fingerprint anyway, and you don't know if the sniper's going to be able to track the difficulties or not. Some don't even try. Not many are good at it. So I say this on cast a lot, and I'm just going to belabor the point here. If you're going to go for the difficult fingerprint, earlier is better because it will influence the rest of the game. And you don't want to be in a position where you have your one fingerprint and then the difficult is for the win, unless you're against an exceptional sniper and that's just the only way you're going to get a win by them, right? But against everyone else, you want that information. Am I going to hit this action test? You want that information as soon as possible.
Agreed. And this is I do not do this very often. It's the only time I'm ever going to recommend a game that I was in. But my game as Seek versus Pwn Noob on Modern was a situation. I loved that game. It was one of my favorites that I played. I don't even care about the rest of the games this season. But I don't recommend my games that often, but that is one that I do for some of the reasons of getting yourself into bad situations and then trying to salvage it, as you're mentioning.
Right, because I mean, against a lot of players, against a good sniper, and against Pwn Noob, if it's basically you get to the point where you hit a difficult and you win, okay, that's fair. You're going to hit an action test maybe 50% of the time. 50% is a great spy win rate against a great sniper. Absolutely. But I'd say anywhere like below silver even, it's the other way around sort of, where it's like you don't want to just bet your game on an action test. You want to be you want your game plan to be better because pacing is an issue, because the game planning isn't as solid, the decision making isn't quite as solid at lower levels of experience. You need every advantage you can get about your planning, about having time to plan and knowing what you're working with. Like if you were like a military general, right? You would examine what resources you had and what you were trying to accomplish. What you're trying to accomplish are the missions you're trying to get done. Your resources are, do I have this fingerprint or not, right? Do I have the contact done? If you don't know if you have that difficult fingerprint or not yet, you have to have 2 plans in your head at all time. One for if it works, one for if it doesn't. And what makes sense for both plans is vanishingly small. The Venn diagram of those two things are basically just two circles, not touching. So if you can get that information earlier and plan the rest of the game around it, so much better, because otherwise you're going to be doing something that doesn't make sense or does make sense based on the action test you haven't hit yet.
It's funny that you mentioned that because that actually, like with like a military general and their resources.
Perfect.
Well, no, not even just that, but I'm thinking of the known, not just the known unknowns,
unknowns.
but the Rumsfeld thing about we now know what we don't know about the. I can't even like get it straight. And people give him guff for that, and like all sorts of there's lots.
It's
of
actually a
things
brilliant
Rumsfeld.
insight.
It is. It actually is, and like all sorts of whatever your political opinions on Rumsfeld, that insight actually is really important. And right now, what you're talking about as an inflection point about before the difficult fingerprint, it's kind of hard because like you're also right about going for it early, because not only do you know which path you're going to be going on, but it's hard to know what your game plan is going to be after it. You're kind of suspended until you get that difficult fingerprint about thinking about what you're going to do.
Yes. Yeah, and you need to know, and as long as it's done with intentionality, though, I don't have a problem with it. As long as it's done with intentionality, as long as it is a known unknown, as long as you say, I don't know if I'm going to hit this action test, but I'm going to play as if I will, and if I do, my percentage chance of winning is very, very high, and I think that will help me beat the sniper. Fine. I would say probably not normally going to be the best play in Obsidian on average. I don't know about any specific instance, maybe, but it's a much more defensible move if that's what you're thinking, as opposed to just, oh, here's a fingerprint, let's check it out, right? And then you have to maybe rush a decision after that because you still need another one too. So, and I do mean inflection point. Inflection point is the best way to put it, because literally an inflection point is where something changes, right? It changes like a direction. If you start a journey of like 100 miles, let's say, if you start at the beginning and you turn yourself 1 degree to the right and walk 100 miles versus 1 degree to the left and walk 100 miles, you are in wildly different places. The longer the journey is, the more important your starting direction and posture matters. So the later in the game that you get this fingerprint, the less you're going to get where you're going, basically. Because if you know early on in the game, then you're going to orient yourself in the right direction, and everything you do from that point is going to be towards a specific outcome.
There we go. All right, so we are at the inflection point we are at is minute and a half. We've done contact. We have 2 inspects. We're a third of the way through in seduce. So one of the things that's nice about this position is that we're probably going to finish inspect and seduce. We just need to think about what the 4th mission is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so now it's not going to be fingerprint. And so now we kind of know that. And so that means we should be a little bit more resolute about basically what hardtail are we going to do. We have a book in hand, but we probably have a highlight. So microfilm, it's usually a little bit better to do before you have the highlight. Well, it's a little bit better. It's a lot better if you do it before you have a highlight, especially on Ballroom, one of the ones where you either completely see it or don't see it at all, as far as like the head turn, and then as far as like tracking people to bookshelf. So it's probably going to be bug, swap, or purloin. Mm-hmm. And at this point, what do we think?
Yeah, well, right before we get into that, I do want to say one thing in defense of this move, though. So we mentioned earlier, like, what's the best decision from this point, regardless of the quality of the decisions up to this point. It is actually kind of a good decision to at least do it now. Because if you do this with 45 seconds left, it's like, what's the point, right? You're really, at that point, everything needs to go right for this fingerprint to even matter. With a minute and a half, if they do hit it, there is enough time to take advantage of that fact, at least. So it's not like pointless or useless or anything like that. So you'd like to have done this earlier in the game if you're going to do it at all, but maybe the opportunity didn't present itself, or maybe they didn't notice, or whatever. So you could look at this as actually a very intelligent last-ditch effort of avoiding an obvious hardtail. And when it fails, it's like, okay, so now I do need to think about the bug. Now I do need to think about the swap. When you say which one, I mean, the problem with that question is that the answer is bug 80% of the time without knowing anything about the game.
That's true. All right, I'm going to go ahead and play because I think you're right about your analysis. Okay. The other thing is, and while I'm playing, am I in slow-mo? No, I'm good. While I'm playing, I'm also going to talk about the fact that unfortunately, even though we kind of know exactly what we're going to be trying to do for inspect and seduce, we do have to still do them. We're going to have to flirt twice. So, our seduction target leaves right as we try to go up to them. But they are at a statue. Oh, no, they're not at a statue. They're returning briefcase. Okay, we probably should just get our inspect done or something.
Yeah, you can't wait around for this seduction target. I mean, the fact they put it right back down is really interesting. They need to go right back into a conversation. Otherwise, you just got to go finish your inspects, yeah.
All right, here we go. We do go for the purloin right now. So big moment. Oh, okay. Interesting. Very interesting. Okay,
Wow.
I'm gonna go back and let's look at this. So I'm gonna look at what the
Yeah.
sniper's looking at because I'm often in the overhead view. So we purloin at the back, painting, and I'm not even sure if sniper recognizes that it's gone. Now the thing that's really cool about this though is the sniper should have seen it, and so Toby's walking across the middle of the party with an empty tray, and
Hmm.
that should be the point at which Sniper starts freaking out. And while Sniper's freaking out, the bug should go off. So actually, the timing of the bug wasn't bad. Now, it was a very obvious bug if the Sniper was even paying even the barest amount of attention, but uh, it
Yeah.
seems to have worked out pretty well.
Yeah, the interesting thing is when I look at the sniper cam while that purloin's going off, they don't appear to be watching any one thing. They're not guarding Ambassador. They're obviously not guarding Purloin. They're just sort of like taking in the party as a whole. It's an unusual style, and that's fine. That works for some people. I would say that's more of like a Veery thing, right? Certain snipers just want like a holistic view of the whole thing, and that's fine if it works for them. But in this case, it means they aren't actually watching the most suspicious mission sites. I mentioned earlier, maybe you can forget that the other missions exist, just watch Bug and Purloin every Ballroom game and just kind of see how often you win anyway, and it'll be pretty high. In this case, I don't think they were watching either.
All right. Well, I'm gonna look at what happens here at the end here, because we have a mess of things that happen, as you probably saw.
Yes.
So okay, so we got the Perla and the bug off, and it was gonna be inspect from this point on. We're not gonna get 2 flirts in this amount of time, so it's gonna be inspect. We tried to go for the inspect, but we try to finish our drink, which is why we pick up briefcase. We go for the briefcase pickup instead. Boots grabs it from underneath us. We sip sideways. We let our body turn back towards inspect. Then we finally pick up the statue. We put it down pretty quick once we're done inspecting, because we don't want to be there right at the end with the beepings going off. We immediately start walking the other way. We go into this conversation and pray, pretty much.
Yeah. It's just kind of chaos at the end, really. And I think the reason they're able to get away with it is because the sniper's taking a holistic view. And maybe one of the reasons they're doing it is because they don't have actual suspects.
Yeah.
Because they have 4 neutral lights, 1 low light, and 7 highlights. The majority of their potential suspects are highlight.
Yeah.
So maybe that's one of the reasons they can't really focus on anything. They're just saying there's just too many highlights here. We mentioned earlier that 2 of those highlights were out during the banana bread, and the lowlights did not get taken there. And now I think it really, really hurts them, because now late in the game, maybe this is just their style too, but late in the game, they're taking this broad kind of top-down view of the party and not watching any one specific thing or any one specific person, and it allows Headhunter to just go hog wild at the end.
Yeah, and I definitely want to echo that, because it's something that burned me for a long time, especially still burns me a little bit now, but definitely burned me a lot when I was an intermediate player. And I think that's kind of our target audience here is the intermediate level, either moving into the intermediates or from the intermediates to advanced. But having too many highlights, the fact is, okay, so when you have a bunch of highlights, this scenario should be exactly what you're trying to prevent. Is you're saying,
Yes.
here are all the people that might do something crazy at the end of the game, and this happening and them getting away with it should tell you that this strategy isn't working out for you. You had this person as a highlight, which the one thing that should give you is that if they do something extremely bold, you'd be able to see it because they're highlight. But because there are so many highlights clogging your attention, they're able to get away with anything. And so it's basically no better than them just all being neutral lit, or just a bunch of people being in the party anyway. Your highlights do nothing for you.
It's worse. They're glowing. They're blocking out other people. I like to say that if you bold every word in a sentence but one, the unbolded word is the one that stands out. It's all about contrast. There's obviously that's not literally true, because glowing is still worse than not glowing in terms of visibility. But generally speaking, even if that weren't the case, you'd literally just have more glowing people than non-glowing people. So the neutral lights are standing out, and that's just not the point of the highlights, really. Now maybe they're using them to track something very specific, but I don't think that's the case. I think one of the hardest things to do as sniper is you've settled in, right? One of the things that makes you better as sniper is you sort of settle into your routine. You decide how you're going to highlight or low light in most instances. You get a good sense for when the party's going to end. You get that timer in your bones that I mentioned. You know what's counterintuitive, what's intuitive, all that stuff. And you've spent hundreds of hours maybe trying to make that second nature so you don't think about it anymore, right? So it happens unconsciously. So your higher level faculties are freed up for other questions. Okay, so to get better, that's what you've had to do, is do this without thinking. Then suddenly you plateau, because to get even better, you need to adjust to edge cases like this. Edge cases where, oh, my relatively normal highlight strategy has produced an inordinate number of highlights, and now my own highlight strategy is hurting me. I am making it harder to win with a tactic that was supposed to make it easier for me to win. In this moment, you need to forget all that stuff you've been trying to like carve into your mind so that it becomes second nature. You actually need to throw that off and change up your highlight strategies because it's hurting you. And that sucks and is hard, and I'm still not good at it, but I'm better at it than I was, 3,000 games ago. And there needs to be a theoretical point at which you look at the party, say I have too many highlights, and then you have some kind of contingency plan, no matter how high risk it is, because at that point you're probably going to lose anyway.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right, well, I'm gonna go ahead and move on to the next game. The point that I'm gonna leave as we go out of this game is that so maybe you can vamp about it a little bit while I set the next game, is that highlights on Ballroom are also particularly obtrusive, where they are more obstruction because most of the cover on Ballroom, almost all of the cover actually on Ballroom except for the pillars, are people.
Yeah. Yes. So it matters even more. Even just the thickness of the highlights around them literally
exactly.
creates.
Yeah.
I mean, like the highlights are actually really thick when you think about it, and when they're packed in there like that, those extra pixels are absolutely precious. I mentioned it's really hard to sort of like mix that up and change up your highlights. If you want an easy point, an easy way of fixing that without having to have all sorts of contingency plans, just say that if you have too many lowlights, you're going to take several aggressive highlights. If you have too many highlights, you're going to take several aggressive lowlights. Like, don't even say you have to have a particularly good reason. Like, well, I think this person might have faked at one point, or that was kind of a good path, or that was a good briefcase cancel. They're high risk, of course, but if you are having trouble like making that decision in the moment against your normal way of playing sniper, just allow yourself to have really lax standards for bringing those highlights down, just in case. Because honestly, that's probably the better play, even if your odds of loading the spy go way up.
That's very true, and also being comfortable with uh, uh, neutral lighting. That's actually something I don't use nearly enough. Is I'm usually either highlighting or low lighting. It's one or the other, right? But not knocking down highlights to low lights, or sorry, to neutral lights. If I touch you, it's either to highlight you or low light you.
Right. Well, so the big question there is then, are you using them to track a thing, or are you using them to track suspicion? If you use highlights to track general suspicion, then it's no issue. Just do it. Just go ahead, for any reason at any time. If you're like me and most snipers, you're using the highlights to track a very specific thing. That's where it gets a little tricky. Obviously still justified if you are behind, if you have too many highlights, all that stuff. You have to make tough decisions, fine. But if you're using it to track, say, could be done with inspects or how's a real banana bread, that makes it a little difficult and sketchy to just be bumping people down for no reason. And that's kind of why I recommended low lights, because if you're using them to track a specific thing, you're just going to muck up what you're using it for entirely to break up that pattern. Because now you can't say anything with confidence. Whereas if you low light them entirely, you're basically just admitting that and getting more potential benefit out of each one and saying, well, the main thing is that you still look at your highlights and the highlights are people who did X. They might not be all the people who did X, but at least you know for sure that they're still tracking the same thing.
Very true. All right, we're jumping into the next game, which is in Iron, and it's Howie versus Smitty. And I'm gonna go ahead and just get us started. 3, 2, 1, go. But I really do like the point about the borders on the characters on highlights being particularly obstructive. It's like you make the pillars a little bit thicker almost, because it is the main obstruction on this map. It's really just about it. So highlights, especially on Ballroom, are a big resource that you're committing by doing them.
Well, I want to thank you for pointing it out, because that had never occurred to me before I said it right then. Never.
All right.
I've played 12,000 games. That had never really occurred to me in a literal sense.
Exactly. No, neither. That's exactly why I like the slow casting, is because you get time to think about weird things. This is as much, basically even more for us than it is for you guys. You guys get to observe us.
Yeah.
So obviously, let's talk about this opening. I'm gonna back up until the point of the bug.
Okay.
So that's like right about 3:10. We're back to back with the ambassador, and we go for a bug into center statue. I love it. I think it's not only a great bug, but going into center statue where sometimes you're so focused on the bug path, right, that you kind of then after you're done with the bug, you're like, all right, where am I going now? And you felt like split second to decide. And Howie does a great job by just going straight for center statue. So it's basically if you caught the bug or not, because the game plan from here on out is probably just going to be taking the seductions into contact and then daring them to shoot.
Yeah, it's early enough that the sniper's still getting settled a little bit. The hand is visible, but they'd have to be looking for it. It's such a quick little move that if you're not looking right there, right then, you're not going to see it. And it actually helps, too, that, like, Seek is picking up the briefcase right then. You know, maybe they're going to note that, maybe they're not. The only downside is that you don't have Toby putting the tray down. He's in no man's land, so you're not getting any benefit from that. But it's such a good bug otherwise that it works out fine. But that would be the perfect thing if you could time it with something like that. More distractions going on, more people's statues, something like that. But it's just that little alleyway is so rough to guard. The ambassador is in such a vulnerable position potentially.
Indeed. And I'm in the future a little bit, and I have seen that Rocker blocks our statue, so we only actually get one inspect from that visit. So now we are in a very different position.
Yeah, but if you got away with the bug, you're still in a huge lead.
Right. So, I mean, at this point, so here's sort of the upshot of it, although our seduction target's being kind of annoying, is you can use the statue visit as an excuse to reset your flirt countdown timer later. So you really need the seduction target to go somewhere, and so you can join them, and then you go back into statues again. Although seduction target's being obnoxious, but that's a great learning tool. So I'm going to ask you, Track, what do you do when your seduction target in the middle of the game is not behaving? So you haven't gotten your first flirt in. There is still technically enough time to do it, but do you start developing contingency plans, or are you just that much more comfortable with chasing as soon as they put it down?
At this point in the game, with almost 2 minutes left, I'm still just assuming I'm going to get it done. Part of that is I have a pretty good AT rate, so there's a decent chance I'm going to 2-flirt, and I might hit a green somewhere along the way, whatever. But there's just a lot of time left. I don't feel like I'm a big suspect. So at that point, I'm not making too many contingency plans yet. I am thinking about it a little bit because I feel like I got away with that bug, though, which does give me contingency plans. Because now if I have to do another hardtail, it's more like the second. It feels more like the first hardtail. I'm not actually trying to get away with 2 hardtails. I'm assuming I've already gotten away with 1 at this point, so it's totally viable. And I am thinking about, are there ways I can do a silent game, for example? I can't do a statueless game, unfortunately, and I'm already being credited with all the inspects, so I'm probably going to finish that no matter what. So I'm thinking a little bit about possibilities for silent games after that bug and after the inspects, but with 2 minutes left, no, I'm still just assuming I'm going to get the flirt done. One thing I do want to talk about briefly, though, before I forget, is that Howie's taken a lot of very, very short paths. A lot of people don't care about that, but more snipers are talking about it. It's something I've always been suspicious of, and I know Noob talks about it sometimes. Short little spy paths, too efficient almost. Statues right into the conversation right behind you, stuff like that. It's the kind of thing where you're fine 90% of the time, but if the sniper cares about it at all, they're just going to be all over you. But that's neither here nor there. The question was about the flirt. I am not discounting the flirt yet. No way.
Yes, and actually Howie pulls a veteran move and pulls seduction target into conversation right next to them. Top tier play, diamond level flirting, but only gets a white test.
About 130 there, yeah.
Yeah, it pulls Orange Dress into the conversation circle. So now we're feeling a lot better through the party.
That is just a spy's charisma, is what that is. I mean, look at the outfit. Look at the outfit Cowboy's wearing. You're telling me this isn't a person with charisma? Come on.
That's very accurate. We go in for the banana bread, so we're actually getting pretty good progress in. We do need to get through this drink, and we need a banana bread kind of. That's another thing I actually want to mention about Ballroom in particular. Banana breads are extremely fickle on Ballroom. You kind of need to do them when you can. The banana bread that we end up taking isn't too bad. It looks like 4 lowlights, and then a lot more if you want to take the fake BB route and assume.
Yeah, because you have 2 conversations. Well, so you have one conversation where the only non-party goer is the ambassador. That's not a hard low light, but that's bigger than most. That's safer than just assume real, because the fake there is such a blatant all-in fake. You know there's not an SDA in if you're Irish there.
Right.
And yeah, the other conversation is Duke and Teal, just 2 people. So those are both, let's say, much safer than normal lowlights without being hard lowlights there. So this is really just I just want to get this mission done is all this is. And I'm slow on the flirt, so I probably can't afford to mess around. I do want to praise Howie, by the way, that before that contact, when they went in, you could see them swing their camera around to look at the whole party. They were actively assessing when to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's somewhere between a hard and soft low light. Where these are the flubber of low lights. And you could get those and be pretty dependable into that.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna start it up again. Yeah, I actually would have been interested. Oh, and we actually take one of those. Oh, actually, no, I think that person was out of conversation. That's actual real life. Oh, actually, and we don't usually look at the sniper very much. Let's look at how efficient Smitty was with their low lights. So the banana bread goes off, and at the moment, of the banana bread, so there's a briefcase going on. So technically, that person as well. But
yep. Hard to catch though. I mean, the sniper may or may not catch that. Let's say that's a lower chance, a much lower chance than average of the sniper catching that one.
So basically, the main one we miss is White Dress, at least as far as I saw, which is too bad because she's a highlight, but pretty good. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then going back into and we green Purloin. Okay, so interesting position that we're in now. We're probably not going to flirt at this point. We don't trust the seduction target. We're probably just going to end with inspect. At least that is what I would do. Because when the Purloin goes off, you basically don't want them to have enough time to backtrack what's going on, right?
Right.
So
this is really interesting because Toby had been offering to them. Toby offered them at 58 seconds, and they do the banana bread, and it's a white, so they do the whole talking animation. They don't want to stop talk. And then they basically take 9 seconds from the tray going down to actually Purloin. So it was sitting there for a long time. That was almost a hardtail.
Okay, well, I'm going to look at that real quick, but one thing that's a little bit unfortunate is that the Purloin didn't last very long. So we were kind of... I would be pretty nervous as Howie at the statues at that point because let's say there's enough time there that the sniper has enough time to panic shoot a statue visitor.
Right.
And we're the only statue video that they could panic shoot. So it's near the end of the game. It's at a really rough point in the game, and we could have easily died just the panic shot after the 10-second window even.
I don't know if it was deliberate to do this while Queen is next to you, because Queen's a highlight, obviously, and she takes the actual list. Taft was in the reject chain, if that matters, but doesn't seem to be a big suspect otherwise, and was technically out for the BB because of the briefcase too. So I think it was just, there's a Purloin here, and I'm a little worried about getting this flirt done. I think that's basically, I'm not going to get my flirt done, so I'm going to do another hardtail, which is one of the possibilities we discussed earlier, right? That your second hardtail in this case is more like your first if you're assuming you got away with bug, and I think you have to assume it when you don't die for the BB. But that guest list was sitting down there so long. Normally when you're covering for it, you're not expecting the sniper to miss it for 9 seconds.
Yeah, and it's also a good example of the trade that you were talking about before with the banana bread, because it came right after the banana bread, and it was during the low lighting phase that we got the green and went over to the statues. It was so long though after that it might have been actually just kind of like noticing, Toby's offering me a drink. I don't know how intentional it was. But if it was a decision, it was an example of the trade where while they were off low lighting in the corner, we got a green Purloin and the sniper was too far behind to catch up.
Yeah. Smitty does a double zoom at around 24 seconds. And I think that's when they see it. And I think that's why, I'll just spoil the end. Yeah, Spy wins. Smitty does not notice the Purloin soon enough. And Howie's just not a big enough suspect. So they win.
All right.
And it's just as well because I think we're actually probably going too slow, even for us.
I know.
Even for a slowcast. So let's see. That was Howie and Smitty. That was Iron. Yeah, we'll tighten it up. We'll tighten it up. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Don't worry. It's always longer in the beginning because we end up talking general ballroom stuff that applies to all games.
That and when we get to the end and we're gonna have the diamond level players, we're just gonna be in awe. We're not gonna be really offering much anyways, right?
Yeah. Or bored because diamond level players take the safe, boring play almost every time.
That's right.
And there's not that much to talk about.
All right. Well, we are in Sulcine versus Emmy Snacks as Taft. Oh, Taft is just kind of a rare spy because of how common Ambassador is. All right. Go ahead and I'm gonna get started.
Yeah, so to expand on what you just said, Taft is a rare spy in some of these venues because he's a common ambassador. He's a common ambassador because, one, he is big, which means that when you do that walking bug, your arm can disappear into him really easily on the turn. And obviously that's suspicious, but still better than having your arm actually seen. The other being that he's basically the fastest character, or very nearly so, which means he moves around a lot, which means he touches a lot of things, which means there's a lot of fingerprints. Which is good whether you want to do fingerprint or whether you just want a party goer to get shot.
Yeah, the only real big downside with Taft is his arm on his bug is kind of obnoxious. It's one of the weaker bugs. But other than that, actually, he's not a bad spy. You just have
No,
to
he's
get it
not a bad
after.
spy. The speed is nice. The bug is okay, I guess. Obviously, great for body blocking with
Yes.
swaps late. That's what he's most popular for. He's a much more viable spy on library than Ballroom.
Okay, well, we opened up with a fingerprint, which gives us a lot of options. Seduction targets. Ooh, and we actually get a low light. I don't actually have any idea what for. Unfortunately, it's not a low light that's going to be obvious to the spy, so I can't really give the spy advice at this point. They're going to play like it's just a normal game, but little do they know they're at a huge advantage.
Little did they know. Yeah. I think what's interesting about these kinds of lowlights is that, as you said, the spy cannot guess them. If you do some kind of great path, if you do a briefcase cancel, if you do a fake, whatever, you might be specific. If you do a quick green purloin at the start of the game and then hightail to the other end of the venue, all those are situations where you think there's a pretty decent chance I have a low light here, and you can play accordingly. In this case, you cannot guess it at all, which leads to the hilarious thing where you time out or get shot for rushing late, and they weren't looking at you at all, and you just had no idea because you couldn't guess it. So in a way, those lowlights are actually more defensible as sniper because they're way less likely to burn you because the spy will never.
That's very true. All right, so actually, I was gonna say the flirt was interesting because it was kind of across the conversation circle, but flirt does us a favor and bails on us. Oh, although we're gonna go to statues anyways. So okay, from here on out, we pick up a fingerprintable statue. So we'll see you're better at fingerprints than I am. I'd even not remember that was a fingerprintable statue. And we're going to be in a pretty good position as is. We do, okay, so one real minor thing. As Track mentioned before, always inspect the statue you're not holding. There's one minor wrinkle to that. Try not to inspect middle statue if you're not going to inspect the statue you're holding, because it limits you to visiting middle statue on this side.
Yes,
now, it's not
great.
that bad.
Great edge case. It's an edge case, but it's there, and every little bit counts. Absolutely right.
So what we're talking about, if you don't already know, Sulsim picked up the fingerprint, which took up the time, where they didn't want to 3-cycle, I guess, but I think they had time anyway. So they inspected the middle statue, which is usually you want to inspect the statue you're not holding, per what we discussed earlier. But we ended up inspecting the middle statue out of a set, which means if we want to inspect 2 more statues, we have to pick up middle statue or go to a different set of statues. Now, it's not that bad. On this map, it's much worse on, say, I guess high rise, but it actually doesn't really matter on high rise because there's all the other sets. But
well, so let's amend the rule. You want to inspect the one you're not holding if you are planning on inspecting all the inspectable statues in that visit.
oh, there you go.
If you're not going to do it, then it's the other way around. But if your goal is I'm going to get as many inspects as I can in this visit, either 3 if I can get 3 or just 2 if I can get 2, then you start with the other one. Otherwise, go ahead and do yours.
Well,
if you're committed to one already, then do yours.
Yeah. So we're probably just going to get away with this because we're probably going to play a soft tail game. And now the big question is just whether or not we can hold pace. We have a minute left that we should be heading out to inspects immediately at this point. Are we just going to go for a bold bug at this point? Like one of the few ways we could possibly get shot.
I don't think so. It looks like we're going to do one of the other ways you could get shot, which is a white timeout.
That's very interesting. Now the thing is, it was pre-beeps, but it was post-color. What I mean by that is the color change is kind of obvious if a sniper was paying enough attention, or even if they're not paying close attention to the time, they might just notice that something happened in the corner of the screen where a red object became a yellow object.
Yeah, it's just one more thing for your peripheral vision to notice.
Okay, so what's the last thing we're gonna do? We kind of need Double Agent and Seduction Target to coalesce here. Now, first of all, that time ad was needed, absolutely needed. It was it was also a good time to do the time ad. I'm actually gonna pause for a second here. I think we've talked about this before in the other Slowcast, but acknowledging and admitting to yourself that you need more time you need to do that early. It's just like if you're working on a project at your office, you need to admit that you're not gonna meet the deadline as soon as you can, rather than asking for extensions right at the end, because your boss will shoot you if you ask for extensions right at the end.
And you want to get your boss to shoot somebody else. That's how you win at your job.
That's right. Yeah, you want your boss to shoot an innocent that had nothing to do with why the project is failing.
Yes. Fantastic. Yes, that's exactly right. So I've talked a lot about humility and how at a certain point you only get better with humility. I usually mean it in a different context, but this is actually, I mean it like a meta sense about, skill level or whatever, but it actually applies in the micro sense that you just mentioned. Being able to see into the future and say, based on my normal pacing, based on the party, am I going to be running low on time? Mm-hmm. And that's harder to say, of course. There's things you don't know. You don't know how the seduction target is going to behave, but you're saying, assuming average luck, assuming plausible luck, what's it going to be like? And if you think there's a pretty high chance that you're going to be running low on time adds sooner rather than later.
Yes, and it was absolutely needed. We completely identified the thing. Yeah. I want to talk about, so go ahead and head to like 30 seconds left, basically.
Okay.
And then I'm just going to be casting it basically from that point out. So we're going to be hopping in for Flirt. I think that's hopefully close enough for if we got a green test. I'm actually not sure if that's a 45% green.
It's really close. It's really close.
But we don't get it, but we luck out, and Double Agent joins us, which is huge. Also, by the way, great banana bread, as it turns out. Like, even just at any point in the game, this is a very good banana bread.
And they did it because they had to.
Yes.
They probably weren't even assessing whether or not it was good. They had no option, and yet it was unbelievable.
Yeah. Nice, big, fluffy conversations, and even the people that are... Exactly. And even the people that are outside of conversation are right next to conversation. Except for basically Ambassador is the only person clearly out of conversation, and even Ambassador's not even that far out of conversation. This is a very juicy BB, and Double Agent comes to us in that situation, which is great. And then we basically have 15 seconds left, where we either have to decide whether or not we have enough time to go out and come back into Seduction Target, which would definitely give us overtime if we're able to pull it off and Seduction Target is nice to us. Or, as I can tell what the spy is thinking when they move their camera, join Ambassador at books. And then then we get shot, which is that is a roller coaster of a game. We get a random low light. What is it, like 30 seconds in, basically? Let's see. We get the low light at just under a minute into the game, and then we actually do a pretty good job of getting most things done, I think. Okay, so let's do the same thing we did before. Let's go back to the decision node where things went wrong. So we did have to pretty much go for that bug. Given the amount of time we had left and the fact that we did not hit the green on the Flirt, and we might not have actually even been close enough for the Flirt at all. So the bug, the execution was a little bit off as well. I think we actually went for a standing bug at the pad instead of
you have to bug on the way in. You're already suspicious for that. In this case, you're low lit going into it and get bumped back up. I don't know if it's going to work or not, but doing it afterwards, it gives them time to react to the fact that someone made a beeline for the Ambassador at the end of the game, inherently drawing their eye, and then you give them a couple seconds to react to that and neutral light you, and then you bug. Like, even not real, obviously you can't know you were low lit, but for crying out loud, like, the whole point of that is so that they have to make the decision at the same time they're seeing it, and it's all one motion, and they have to go, did they bug? I don't know. And by the way, if you do it as soon as you come in, let me see the exact timing here, they would have gotten the bug done at 12, so there's no overtime. Instead, they bug basically right around 10. It doesn't even matter. They don't wait, of course. But why give them so much time to react there?
That, and just because of the randomness of this game, they would have bugged while they were being transitioned into a neutral light. So first of all, this was the only low light on the map for guest, the only low light on the map, and we get bumped up. So it's just fascinating to me that this was the only flexible low light. Oh, actually, you know what? I have a theory now that I think about it. Sorry, I'm talking about with the low light from before.
Yeah, I mean, they do a briefcase early in the game, but I don't see that same decision. I don't see any indication that's being used to track fingerprints or something like that.
I was gonna say maybe it was a DA mismark on the low light from before. Anyways, so we would have bugged on the way in, and actually, if that arm was out there, it was pretty well blocked by Duke. And
Yeah.
I don't think we would have gotten shot. But when we did the lean, we also have that very, very obnoxious lean animation when we go in. We're just so obvious that we get bumped back up, and then it makes the bug more visible when we go back in. So anyways, let's go backwards. So the bug was a forced bad choice. I kind of understand why we did it, but still that means we made the mistake earlier than that. So
Yes.
the one little mistake was that I think we didn't actually go close enough to the seduction target. I don't
Yes.
know if that's exactly
Yep.
45%, but that's real close.
Make sure
There's
you're close
no
enough, yeah.
there's no reason not to just push that a little bit closer and
Yep.
make sure you get that flirt done. Because if we had the 99%, that would have even been more tragic. Yeah. Anyway, so we get lucky also with the double agent coming in. So I'm actually also not going to count that. Because we got real fortunate with the double agent coming to us right as that was getting done. So before then, I think was the mistake. So let's see. I guess it's the idling.
So the seduction target is like jumping around, and they're trying to chase them. So the only next potential inflection point I see is when they put the statue down at 103. The seduction target is at a nearby gallery pad or painting pad, whatever. And they've been there for a while. So Sulseem very understandably does not want to go flirt with them on that pad, even though they've left them a lot of room on the left side. It turns out the seduction, right when they walk past them, right when they decide not to flirt, right when they pass them, sips. So they would have had time, and that would have been huge. At that point, they actually try to chase them, and they go pick up a briefcase, and at that point, nothing you can do about it. And I can't even really question them, because the odds are that Duke is not going to stay there long enough at that point, because they were at 107, and you'd be flirting with them at like 59, it looks like. So they're usually going to be gone, and that's going to be wasted time. So that's not the problem either. So the problem has to be before that statue visit.
Well, I mean, I guess also with that one, we got kind of screwed over by bad luck on where the seduction target went a little bit. I think actually I like the 103 spot because given that double agent was at a bookcase, I think we needed to bug after seduction target started screwing us over, and also importantly, this is a pretty minor point. Double agent has a book, which means double agent has a chance of going back to blue bookshelf. Like you get that burned into your mind when that happens, where you see double agent with a book, you hate it. You hate the fact that double agent is a book, because at least
it's going to happen.
Exactly, they're going to go back at some point. Now, seduction target with a book is annoying, but at least you can flirt at a bookcase. You can't do anything with the DA. Well, at least to finish, you can fake BB. You can't do anything to finish that mission with the double agent at the bookcase. You're just out of luck. So I think we needed to have a little bit better contingency plan at that 1 minute spot. We get a little bit screwed up for bad luck. But if we want to go back even further than that, I think that when we left conversation to go to Windows at 51 seconds, that's when we time added though.
Yeah, I mean, there's just
actually.
wasted time. There's just the thing is, everything is spaced out.
Yeah.
Really. And then at the end, they do the timeout to try to compensate for it. And at that point, if they had normal ST luck, probably fine. But they didn't. At that point, they needed average luck, and they got kind of bad luck after kind of wasting all that time in the beginning. Because if you look at like 130, they're going into statues for the first time. They have one fingerprint and 21% flirt, and that's it, with 90 seconds left on the clock.
Yeah.
So the answer is actually pretty early in the game. There's just a ton of idling at the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
After the fingerprint, there's like a minute and a half that just vanishes.
Yeah, you're totally right. Like I'm just looking at when the moment we get the flirt for 21%, almost 2 minutes have gone by. We get one fingerprint in 1 minute and 45 seconds at the beginning of the game. We've idled the entire rest of that game away. Now we did get a low light, but I don't think it was because of idling. So I think that's got to be it. Idling at the beginning of the game can bite you, obviously, because you're just gonna have fewer options. Even if you have everything, you have a plan in your mind lined up, where it's like, here's the plan. I finish up flirts. I go to inspects. I get a contact, right? Like, let's say you just get the hardtail or the fingerprint that way. Where it's like, you have a plan already. I got the fingerprint. I think I got away with it clean, easy. Seduce, inspect, contact. all of those things rely on other people. They all rely
Yep.
on seduction target behaving, double agent behaving, and ambassador going and touching things. You are relying on the party, even though it makes sense. You, in your mind, you can see yourself going to, let's say, statues, flirting, statues again, fingerprint, banana bread. You can see it all coming together in 45 seconds. It can definitely happen. It's actually not that easy. You have to not let your imagination get away with you, where you can see the path, but it's very unlikely to happen. And just one of those things going off throws your timing off for everything.
Yep, I agree. I have nothing to add.
All right, well, let's jump into the next game. That was a very interesting game. Also, but I also want to give a shout out to was that Smitty for bringing back and shooting what was like their only low light all game.
I mean, to some people, lowlights are just gone, and for most, I would say most people watch them a little bit, but some a lot more than others. And in this case, it absolutely salvaged a game for them. Yeah.
Yeah, it was actually Max Edwards next. That was Smitty was the game before. But
That's
yes, congrats to them. All right, so we are into Chef and Rio.
Shep, I think,
Shep.
and Rio.
Just
Rio is how you say it.
There's nothing. I'm Shefford and Rio. Rio. All right. Let me grab their names real quick.
And we're in a bronze? Is that what this is?
Yes, bronze.
Yeah, bronze. We're getting up there, all right. All right, you and I, we have to resolve to do these ones quicker. We can do it. I know we can. Whether or not we will, I don't know. I just know we can.
All right. We're in bronze, right?
Yes.
Okay, we are resolving doing quicker and starting in now. and luckily, we are one of the fastest characters in the game.
That'll help, I'm sure.
Yeah, we are race car Alice. Well, let's see what we actually end up doing in this one. We are being offered the drink early, and there's still a lot of things going on, so it's possible we're doing something, but we're actually not. We're kind of still seeing what the party's offering us.
2 people are approaching Green Bookshelf. 1 person already has a book. 1 person's going to center statues, and it is 30 seconds in is an interesting time. Obviously, a lot of snipers are on guard for Time of Chaos stuff, and they're on guard for stuff late. But there are lulls in between where the sniper starts to settle in, right? And maybe they stop being quite as vigilant. I think 25 seconds or whatever that was is a little early. I think they're still on high alert at that point. But another 15 or 20 seconds after that, it can actually be a sneaky good time to probably.
And I'm just gonna let the game play out while we're going because we're really not doing much. But what I'm gonna ask is gonna be kind of counterintuitive, which is how much do you think that you should plan before the game starts for a map like Ballroom? Like, just commit to, like, this game I'm going to at least do, like, these 2 things and then see what the party offers me for the other 2 things.
I think it completely depends on what you already know about your opponent. There are certain opponents where I will absolutely have a strong game plan. I'll say I'm almost positive that they are going to nail me for this mission most of the time, or they watch it more than others, and this one they don't. This one they lose to a lot. If they have strong enough tendencies, I will absolutely game plan a whole bunch. It'll still have to be a little contingent. It'll be, if I'm near the guest list, I'm going to try to rush a Purloin. If I'm near a statue, I'll try to rush a swap, Time of Chaos bug, whatever. If they don't have strong tendencies, then I try not to do too much of it. I try to have general strategies. Like, this game I will try to finish. This game I will try to frame. And I really mean try, because obviously some games the party doesn't cooperate and you can't really finish, and other games it's obvious they're not going to shoot and there's no one frameable. So if the quality of the research I've done suggests really strong tendencies, then I will have stronger game plans. Otherwise, it'll be more general game plans. But like, I'm going to finish, but within that parameter of I'm going to finish, I'll allow myself to just react to the party.
Okay, so I'm also going to stop us at 114 just because I'm going to point out what you probably notice and is screaming in your mind. We have half of a flirt done in the first 2 minutes and 15 seconds. So
yeah, and I'm going to defend it a little bit, actually, because I think the higher up you go, the more defensible this is, for 2 reasons. One is that spies are better and better at rushing things efficiently late if they have to. The other is that at higher levels, the players seem to be more familiar with each other. So you can make just a blanket better argument for, like, idling early to get a low light, or because the sniper might be susceptible to it. Whereas a lot of the people in Obsidian, a lot of them are brand new to each other. And if you're in Obsidian, you're just trying to play the best general spy party game you can, and it's just going to be way less opponent centric. It's going to be way more about general core competency stuff. How well do you execute on the basics? But up here, it's going to be way more potentially already, even just in bronze already, this could be, I don't know enough about Ryu to say for sure, but it's already totally plausible that Shep just has seen enough to say a really slow start will probably work in my favor.
All right, well, we are at 24 seconds, and we only have Purloin Seduce done. I'm very curious about what we can possibly do to get out of this one.
I mean,
So
it has to be
DA.
banana bread. That's what you're going for. Wow.
Banana bread.
And it doesn't happen until 8 seconds. That's not good. And that's just a timeout. Okay, so you don't need to justify a game. If you just look at the snapshot at the end of the game, right? It's hanging at 0, Spy ran out of time. You look up in the top left-hand corner. Seduce is half done, Contact is done, Purloin is done. This game makes perfect sense. You don't have to have seen the actual game. You just need this last image. They tried to frame with a Purloin. They tried to induce a shot on Ballroom with a Purloin. They flirted to give themselves some options, but it didn't really line up. That all makes sense. Don't need to worry about that at all. Can't even really question it. It's entirely possible it was a good decision that just didn't work. The one big mistake, of course, is double agent contacted at 8.5 seconds.
Yeah.
Cannot do it that late. Better to take an awful, awful, awful fake at any other point in the game than to get to the point where when you're trying to get someone else shot, letting them know they're going to have at least a full second of overtime beeps and then nothing happens.
Yeah, and the thing is, we actually had quite a long time with DA in conversation. Now, so here's the problem they run into.
Yeah, I don't get it. I just don't get it.
Yeah. All right, let's think of what the spy could be thinking, because I've been in the positions like this before, where I'm thinking to myself, okay, so I've purloined and I want to BB to induce a shot, but I'm looking around and like, this BB is not good enough. But the thing is, if you corner yourself into that thinking, you're just not going to BB. And that's exactly basically what happens is, and right, the BB doesn't go off until 8 seconds, which means there's basically no reason to shoot until overtime beats at the very least. And and granted, if they did happen, it looks like Taft was going to get shot, but we are a mission and a half away from getting that done.
Yeah. One thing I'll say in their defense is that they actually start the BB at 12 seconds. So if they hit the green, they're fine. Well, theoretically, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but that would make sense. On the other hand, when you're banking your whole game on this, the BB just has to come off. You have to leave yourself a few more seconds so that if you white test, a shot still might come off. But I have no problem with the decision. It may or may not have been a good decision, and I'd have to study Rio in particular to know. And even just then, sometimes it just feels like the right decision at that point in the set. Maybe this is the last game after 3 civ shots. Maybe they've been jumpy all game. Maybe you've shown mission progress in every other game, and now you're trying to get them to shoot because you've been mission winning. Those are all perfectly good reasons potentially to do this. So I have no issue, even though it looked like they weren't really that close to winning, I have no issue with anything other than needing the green test to have the BB come off before 10 seconds.
And that is very true. If you want to induce the shot, because it is nerve-wracking to hear BB at 12, 13 seconds. The thing is, like, you actually don't need it to be at like 11 seconds to make the sniper nervous. At like the 14 seconds, 13 seconds, they're going to be going crazy in their head anyway. I mean, we basically joined exactly at 13 seconds. But if the thing is, if you are, I mean, I guess he did trigger pretty early. So one thing I will also say in Shep's defense is they didn't bother waiting to very long at all to do the banana bread, because they don't care about their suspicion. They're already all in on getting someone else shot. It doesn't matter if they immediately go into CC and BB, because they're not the ones that they're concerned about being seen. If they get shot, well, they would have timed that anyways. Who cares? So I do really respect that, because we've stopped caring about ourselves taking a bullet, but we are just trying to get the win out in whatever form we need it to be. Yeah. So so this is something that sometimes is good to force out of your opponents on sniper. Timeouts, I almost never let them happen because I have like a psychotic need to get missions done, even if it's not the best call. But this is not a bad thing. It gives me heart palpitations to see Spy run out of time, but you don't have to play this way. So this is like what is this? This is what's the new thing that you have to eat? Like kale. This is the kale of SpyParty of spy losses. You have to eat it every once in a while. It's bitter. Nobody actually likes it. But it's a healthy part of your diet, you know?
Yes. And there is one wrinkle to what you said that I'll get into, though, once we start the next game.
Okay. Well, we're going to jump into silver for Cartwright versus ML726. That's Matt, right? I always ask that.
Yep, that's absolutely right. Yeah, and while you're setting that up, just briefly, yeah, you don't actually time out much, but you do slow play, and there's an important distinction there because a lot of people will slow play, but when 30 seconds are left and they realize a shot's not coming off, or 10 seconds are left, then they'll go time ad, then they'll go rush a mission, something like that. So it actually results in very few timeouts, and you'd look and see, oh wow, no timeouts or very few timeouts if you're studying them, and you'd think, oh wow, they must always make mission progress. No, not necessarily. That doesn't tell the whole story. You want to look at clock usage instead.
Yes, yeah, my clock usage is fun. I like it, even if it's. I'm looking forward to if there's ever anonymous matchmaking, because I think I'm pretty easy to study. But if I'm in the middle of a set versus normal spies, I like it. I think I'm a good change of
Yes,
pace.
it'll be very effective. It'll be very effective.
But I'm also easy to study, as it was shown in Platinum. Anyway, we are jumping into Cartwright versus Matt, starting in 3, 2, 1, go. We immediately take control and move away. Ooh, we might actually even do an immediate purloin. Yes. Okay. So this is a classic game. We've actually gotten a good spread of different openings in this.
This is what we just talked about, right?
Yes. So we did the Time of Chaos. I'm actually even going to stop and go back to this because I'm almost sure this is planned before the game started. Time of Chaos on Ballroom is going to be swap, bug, and purloin, like most maps, honestly. Not too many time ads, Time of Chaos on Ballroom. It's actually not that bad. It just doesn't happen as often.
No, and it's not good for grabbing a book and running either.
Very true. That's actually a great
Library,
point.
It is good, but it's not here.
Library and Modern, not that bad.
Yeah.
But you're right that Ballroom is actually one of the more difficult ones because it's just always in sight, and you're taking a big risk when you're doing it.
And there's only two, and they're across from each other. They're not near each other. All that stuff. So even if you have like a general sense of the direction they came from, you got them.
Exactly, you're right. Or they're on completely different sides of the map. If you see them, you're right. You can divide the map in half, and you just see them later. You can be like, oh, that was a green, just because of the nature where they're coming from. So, but this is the way to set up a green or a purloin, a really early purloin. We decided this before the game started. I'm almost positive. We immediately take control. We go into a CC, which a lot of the time people will do. They'll do it at the painting pads. I personally watch that more in the Time of Chaos if they're at painting pads.
Same.
Because when they're in the conversation circle, that just kind of makes sense, and then I'm kind of like, okay, that's fine, and I look somewhere else. I think this is a great opener, opener for the Chaos purloin.
And it's fortunate that nobody joins that conversation because you leave then right after the green, and because there's no one else there, Toby has to go to another conversation, which moves him away from the place where the green purloin actually took place, which is nice. For like location-based low lighting later if they remember something. And because it adds a couple more seconds to the time when the guest list is actually taken. That ends up becoming very important because the next person Toby offers to in a different area, which is Wheels, rejects it. So that the third person offered to, Boot/Buns, is A, next to the ambassador, so she's being watched very closely, and B, by the time she takes it as Cartwright is putting down the statue. If you green purloin and then someone right next to you in conversation takes right afterwards, what happens is you're picking up the statue as the purloin goes off. And almost every intermediate or better sniper already knows that running to statues after a green purloin is a spy move. It's like, please low light me, I could not have purloined. It's to the point like splits where it's become more suspicious rather than less almost. But because you go to a different conversation, because you get a reject, and because the third person takes it, you're putting down the statue when the purloin comes off, and that is a much stronger sell for I could not have possibly done it.
Yeah. This game is beautiful so far, by the way. Like I'm just watching this, and this is this might actually end up being the best spy game that we see on Ballroom tonight, even though we still have a few divisions to go. But because we ditch out to statue and we are going all in on just like finishing early, we go to statues, and that pays off huge because we get a low light. Because who's the kind of person that doesn't get offered a drink? Someone who's at statues early. And obviously they did, and they could have noticed it early, but it just seems like they were out of conversation circle, where if you weren't keeping extremely close track of Toby, you might not have just seen him at all, and you start taking low lights on the people you'd previously highlight because they couldn't have taken a drink. They were at statues.
Yeah, and I did not know that low light was coming, by the way. I just saw what they were doing and thought, well, the odds of a low light go way up because of this little delay now, because they're putting the statue down when it comes off rather than picking it up or having just picked it up. And they get the low light, and now they're just in ridiculously great position.
Yeah. They take the banana bread when they get it. It's actually a pretty good banana bread. That's just kind of a good timing for that. Regardless, I wonder if we might even just go for a bug at this point and not even go to statues again.
I mean, they look like they thought about it, but they don't. Even though they can maybe guess they have a low light, it's not. Let's say it's not more likely than not, right? A high percentage low light situation is probably still one where you're like, 40% I'm low lit, maybe, something like that. They do bug at 133 though.
Yeah.
Wow, that's just brutal. I mean, as a neutral light, that's pretty darn good. And normally that would be a little riskier because Toby's nearby, so you have the two maybe most important mission sites are right there while you're bugging, but the list is gone.
Right.
So
exactly.
Toby doesn't matter in that regard anymore.
Wow. Okay, so I can't possibly see us losing from this spot. I'm going to just go ahead and see it, but we're going to timer flirt from here. Selection target does leave, but we're chasing that fool down, I'm guessing. Actually, I don't know. It looks like we're not. We're just going to wait for... We're just going to play it cool and know that we're going to be fine later. Although Seduction Target is being a little bit... It would be hilarious if Seduction Target does crazy things all game and we're forced into something else. I mean, it won't be too bad. Worst case scenario, inspect.
Exactly. So the only thing interesting about this from this point forward after that initial burst is that Cartwright does not go to statues a second time, takes the bug instead. It could be that they actually think they're a bigger suspect and they're worried that that second statue visit's going to be the trigger. Totally plausible. It could also be, well, I'm going to plan to inspect and, oh, geez, this just looks like such a great time. Okay, I guess I'll bug. And once you're not shot for the bug with the purloin and the banana bread having already happened, and they're presumably crediting Flirt or whatever, the fact that you're not shot for that bug means, okay, I'm fine. I can do whatever I want now.
Yeah, and so also when we bugged, we were also going for mission wins rather than getting someone else shot. So I mean, someone else could have very well gotten shot in that game as well because there was a banana bread and a purloin that went off. So
Fairly
I would not
likely,
have been surprised, right? I mean, it looked like we were going to mission win, but I was going to be equally. I thought it was spy win very high percentage of the time, but I wasn't sure what the nature of the spy win was going to be. One thing I also like about not visiting statues is that might be one of the random shots the sniper takes. Is
if they're desperate.
Exactly, right, is late statue visits. So I do like the fact that we try our best to avoid statues just because, by the time we flirt, it would have been overtime a little bit, I think, if we had the second statue thing. But also avoiding going back to statues was one of the big things we got by getting the bug, and so taking advantage of it by making sure we get the selection done.
Yeah. Just real solid. On to gold then, I guess. Royal Flush and Turnout 8.
Indeed. But that was a fantastic game. Used that purloin well. And also, I think of all the games so far, the one that had the game plan going into the game. They knew what they were going to do before they even started it.
Yeah, it could be total game plan, like you said. It could also be contingent game plan. It could be if I'm near Toby, I'll do it. Because if you can have that game plan, but if you start off at one end and Toby's at the other, you usually don't want to force that. That's usually not going. You're usually going to lose most of the potential benefit there. So it could be contingent, certainly, and that I would say that still counts as game planning because that's the part you can control. If I'm near X, I'll do Y.
All right, and we are Queen. What a good royal subject Royal Flush is. And starting in 3, 2, 1, go.
So just general observations about some of the differences we're already seeing. We're seeing flirts happening more reliably. And what we're seeing is that when you get up, I think, silver and above, just to generalize a little bit, when they get away with the hardtail, when they get away with the difficult fingerprint, whatever, they're just much better at pressing that advantage and leveraging it into a win. Or leveraging it into the sniper taking a very difficult shot, like almost every time. Whereas at lower and mid levels, you'll see people get away with like a bug, just clean. And they'll either time out or they'll find themselves forced to do a second hardtail, and maybe they win and maybe they don't, but they give a sniper another out after missing the first thing. Whereas like a spies higher up, it's like they get that one thing by you and they just grind you down and they win. It's just like 2 mistakes rather than 1 is what the division difference buys you sometimes.
All right, well, we have not gotten much done so far. Well, sorry, anything done so far.
Yep, nothing at all.
Which is actually...
And this is atypical, because Royal Flush is generally a pretty aggressive spy.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, Both these players are actually really aggressive spies, Turnout and Royal Flush. But
Yeah.
maybe that's what they're doing, is they're trying to play against their type because they know that's what the other one likes. All right, well, we might have a natural opening into Purloin here. Yeah, really not all that much going on. We are going to finally do the Purloin. Okay, so now we green Purloin. One thing I would like to see is him not leave. Ugh. So the only thing is like I'm starting. Well, I mean, like I guess if he's going to go do stuff, it's all right. But
Well, it's a real question, right? Do you bail or do you hang around? Do you play it cool? So I actually was talking to someone about prep and like, what do you want to look for? And that's such a loaded question because everyone's different. You don't know what you're looking for until you see it, kind of thing sometimes. But in a very broad sense, are there things that you like always make a point to note for a player? And one of the things I think you want to always note if you're researching someone is how do they react to their purloins of different kinds. If they green a purloin, do they walk away? If they white a purloin, do they walk away? And do they gulp or sip? Do they play it cool or not, right? As a general rule, what do they prefer? Do they like being around the site? Do they like gulping, yes or no? And in this case, yeah, that's the question. You're saying in this case you think there's a lot of inactivity. They were just hanging around. You would have liked to have seen them stay rather than bail after the green.
right. Just because, and it's for the exact reason you mentioned. It's just that spies always do it. Spies love bailing after.
More than not, for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Especially, I will say it's even worse on more prevalent on library. I almost low light if I see someone in a reject chain that stayed in their conversation circle on library and it was a green test. They just they can't help it. It's like reflexive. They just want to they want to run to the other side of the map immediately.
Yeah, I guess one of the interesting questions is like how likely are they going to get location-based lowlights? This half could not have done the purloin, that kind of thing. It matters more in some places than other. It matters a lot on gallery because you'll get people who say inside outside, right?
Right. Okay, so we do end up bugging, and so I also think that Royal Flush had planned to bug from the beginning of this game and was going for a silent game, which I actually respect. Do we even have a chance at a BB? Well, we didn't really have a chance at BB. When was the last BB opportunity we had? It was actually a while ago. It was at basically when we did our inspect. We could have actually, we had nothing. We were actually, I think we were trying to get into a conversation with Double Agent. There was nothing going for the rest of the game. We had to either bug or swap, and that was in the same direction at that point. Yeah, a little bit unfortunate right there because I think if we BB'd, we were probably okay. I don't actually know for sure. But I'm actually going to say on a large level, with regards to the Ballroom tournament tomorrow, because I'm not playing it also, you're not going to need to watch Microfilm and swap most of the time. This map is watching bug and watching purloin. And then also paying attention to fingerprints. Inspects are really easy to track on this map, and then if you would like to flex out into seduction target as far as missions go, because the other thing about this map, and we haven't really talked about this part, there's not that many reliable pathing choke points on this map. There are pathing snipers that are really good, that know the conditions for what happens when people bounce into each other, when guests bounce into each other, what to look for. But otherwise, pathing's not the best or the most dominant style on Ballroom. Sipping is not bad. Sipping and watching for animation breaks and conversation circles, but pathing's not that great. Camping is almost reduced to purloin and bug tracking, and then behavioralism is probably a lot of flirt decisions, and then timing on things like banana breads and statues. Timing on banana breads is probably really big. So just relative to other maps. So if you're heading into and trying to figure out how to adapt your gameplay, maybe you don't play Ballroom that much, which is weird to me because I think of Ballroom as such a bread and butter map. But if you don't play Ballroom that much, it's one of the big considerations you could have for your gameplay is to think about things like that there's not going to be choke points in the pathing. You're really going to be focusing on purloin and bug, those sort of things.
If you're watching this, take a look at the other players in chat. Remember who's in there. If you play someone who tomorrow who is not in chat, then remember what we said. Watch Bug and Purloin inordinately and discount the other ones a little bit. If you're playing someone who is in chat and has just heard me said that, then never mind.
Well, also the people that are in chat are people like like noob and people that play against type a lot in OP, and it's like the people in chat are
That's
the
true.
people, the active people that actually will try to mix it up a bit. I'm actually really curious. I can't actually see the matches live tomorrow, but I am personally excited for it because I want to see what just playing a lot of Ballroom does to a person for the microfilm meta. It's
Yes.
criminally
Yes.
underused, but I think it's going to increase as
Yes.
people play with it tomorrow.
Well, you said criminally underused. I'll let you guess two things about the percentage of
Ooh, okay.
microfilm completions. One, you can guess the actual percentage, and the other, you can guess its ranking in terms of how often it's completed among the various missions. I already told you Contact was the most at 63%.
Okay. So,
So ranking
ranking.
out of 8.
Ooh, I think it's last out of 8.
You
Um,
are correct. It is
uh,
last out of 8.
Last out of 8, and then percentage being out of all games or wins.
All games. SCL 1,462 ballroom games. How often is microfilm completed? And keep in mind that does not include they approach the wrong bookshelf and are shot before they put the book in.
Right.
It has to check off. That does make a
Or
big difference, but
removing it once, that sort of
right,
thing, or moving it once
right.
and
So
putting it
the, so
back in before blah blah
so
blah.
the percentage would be even lower than the times when it was clearly about to be completed. Yeah,
Right. 6%.
12. But
12.
I'm actually impressed you guessed that low to begin with because most people do not guess that low for any mission ever.
Right.
It's actually slightly lower than fingerprint even, which is 14%.
That's really low for fingerprint. There's so many
Yeah,
things. Like I say that
I'm surprised.
as
Yes.
someone who does the fingerprint,
Yeah,
but that's actually the ambassador. So actually,
I was
that's another thing we're going
surprised.
to talk
I was
about.
surprised when I saw it.
Fingerprint opportunities on this map are ample because the ambassador gets crowded all the time. Now, the one thing
Yeah.
I'll give this map is it's here's probably the kicker though. It's 3 minutes 30 seconds. It's a short map for the amount of time. Or sorry, for the for 4 missions. A lot of other maps have more time than that. So fingerprint, you kind of have to force it a little bit. But
Yeah.
oh, it's actually, let's go back to an earlier lesson. Go for an early difficult fingerprint and just see what happens, and then make your decision from there.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, swap only slightly more, 16%. But the fact that swap is above fingerprint, that definitely surprised me. I don't, my guess is that that has more to do with early years when it was still a little newer. I think people are catching on. I'm going to check season to season maybe after this cast. And I'll bet it's becoming more prevalent though.
All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next one, which is going to be Falcon Hit versus Banana Conda. I specifically chose Falcon Hit because I think Falcon Hit is one of the better ballroom players in Platinum. I specifically banned it versus Falcon Hit. I believe in both of my matches because I played his replays and I consistently lost to his replays, which you have the advantage of not having any laser advantage, which is pretty small
Yep.
relative on Ballroom. That's the thing about
But if
Ballroom
you
is
but if you're losing even those, yeah, you get rid of it.
exactly right. And I there's a lot of tendencies that Falcon Head hits that has on Ballroom that I was able to pick up a little bit, but I'm just gonna kind of see what happens in this game. I don't know if I actually think I tried to grab a game that I didn't replay snipe versus, but I could be wrong. So hopefully I don't remember what happens in this game. But even if I do, I might mess that up. All right, saving and let's go ahead and go.
Okay. By the way, Ballroom, the most played SCL venue for both you and Falconhead. Although that's, again, probably because you have both played a lot. You've played in every season, and Falconhead has played since season 2, and it's been around longer than all the other ones. Obviously, a lot of the competitive maps just came in last year, so that's probably part of it. But it's your most played map and his.
Yeah, well, Vulcan, I'm not surprised because Buckenhead also picks it a lot, and I went out of my way
You
to try
banned
to
it
ban
6
it.
times, though.
I did. I ban a lot
The last
versus
few years.
certain players. I'm also there's just some players where their playstyles in Platinum dovetail too well into Ballroom, where I don't like crowded maps versus a lot of the players. If they're spread out,
Yeah.
like I'm fine on Modern, even though Modern has like a is larger, has more people. I'd rather there be them spread a little bit more guests where I can feel like a little more room to breathe because they are aggressive, like calculated aggressive spies in Platinum, as is probably the case in Diamond as well, but I know about that less.
Yeah, and Banana Conda, very much in the Royal Flush turnout mold that we mentioned in Gold.
Yeah.
One of the most aggressive spies. I'd say, in all of SCL probably.
Absurdly aggressive bugs. She takes the wildest opportunities, but it's like, and the thing is, I say that as if it was a any sort of criticism, but actually they come at great times where they're so aggressive I'm not looking at them. I would see them if I was looking, but they're just at such, I like. I'm almost offended because I put my laser in the ambassador all the time, and I'm like, and it just like doesn't matter. They'll still just bug right in front of me, and it's like I had my laser on them. You should know to respect me enough. This disrespect of bugging in front of me.
Yeah, I mean that's part of it. That makes sense. What I like about Banana's bugs are that they kind of fit that mold I mentioned earlier with the difficult fingerprints about intentionality. It's like I'm going to do this aggressive bug because if I get it and it's clean, I'm usually going to win, and that's it. I'm okay banking my game on that, and that works. It's if you do them just because they're there without the intentionality, that's not the same thing. But if you can play a clean game apart from them, so that you're basically just saying, "Here's my big chance, big swing. Did I hit? Yes, it's out. If I didn't, I strike out. Fine." If you know you're doing that and you get good at it, good for you.
Uh, Banana's also signaling on a couple people. They took safety off for a second on Tex, and they also took safety off for a second on Orange Dress. We miss a pad, but it's not bad. We're lined up as well, so it doesn't really matter at all. Um, ooh, did we get that? We did not get that bug, unfortunately, at 53 seconds. I'm actually pretty surprised the bug. I'm actually going back and watching that bug. I thought that bug should take.
Yeah, you watch that. I'm going to try to figure out why Tex is such a big suspect here because Bananaconda is a pure camper, basically.
Yeah.
So what are they on to here? Let me see here. One, two. Yeah, two statue cycles. Watch check. I don't know. I don't see what they keep seeing. Bananaconda is not trying to play behaviorally. Just again, along with Kaylee, just a straight up camper. Probably I mean, a mini Kaylee, really, in terms of play style on both sides, really. So the question is, why are they that suspicious for two Softails?
Yeah, with the shot thing, because like them taking off safety is the big thing. We
Yeah.
were a
Well,
fraction of a
okay.
second off of that bug, by the way. That was
Yeah,
very
it was
close.
very close. So, just for the safety thing, I don't want to react to it too much because sometimes you see safeties flash off and you read too much into it.
Banana bread.
I think part of the thing, you might be doing it to say, I'm close to shooting this person, which is what we're assuming with these questions like, hey, what's up? What's going on? But it could just mean top suspect. This is my top suspect at this moment. Which means nobody's doing anything, but you've got your inspects done, so you're my top suspect. Some people might even do it for their own kind of memory, like prime themselves, remind myself, who is my top suspect? I do that mentally. I ask myself sometimes, if I had to shoot right now, who would I shoot? The same way I ask myself, if overtime beats start, who's it going to be, right? So I don't have to make that panicked shot. So it might just be, this is my top suspect, even though I haven't seen them do too much yet.
All right, so as the game goes on, the big moment is obviously the purloin at 30 seconds. And we get a little bit fortunate that at that point, Bananaconda's looking elsewhere, does not see it, does not see the list is gone in between the transfer over to Orange Dress. And then as soon as we give up looking at the list when it transfers over to Orange Dress, the banana bread goes off. The tray is not very visible at that point. And then banana bread goes off, and then it can't be Orange Dress. So we go over to low light Orange Dress, and we continue to not look at the list, even though it's pretty visible at the time when it turns over. But we're in low light mode when that happens. We start low lighting, and then by the time we look back at the tray, it's with 2 seconds left, and we see the list is gone at that point, and then it's over.
So there's two things about this. There's nothing more, serious going on than just not looking at the list in time. And you're right, though, there are always things to do. So this really shows that camping is brittle. So Kaylee often likes to joke that if you play like a 4-8 variant, if you just get the bug by him, you're just going to win like 95% of the time. Like it's all about that. It seems overwhelming, but it also means that if you get it by, it's over. So camping has to be pretty darn reliable to be effective at all. Part of that means that when you are reacting to things, when you're getting your lowlights or when you're checking your mission sites, it has to be ruthlessly efficient. If you're taking like a full second where you swing your camera over to lowlight someone, you could miss a reject in that moment or a bug in that moment, and then the whole game falls apart. So you need to be quick. You need to have your rifle on a swivel, basically. And I think in this game, Banana was just a little too slow in those reactions. And when you are an avowed camper like that, that's the one thing you can't afford.
Yeah, and that's a big thing. Now the thing is, I wish that there was a better lesson that we could give for players to this one. You're not going to be able to easily replicate specifically what happened with Vulcan hit. The timing of the cycles is important to remember. Is like if you can time a cycle so that by the time they check it, it's too late for them to respond to it.
Yes.
Unfortunately, it's the timing of the cycle that matters. Like if the cycles are just a little bit misaligned, and instead banana checks right when text takes, and it's in between that transfer, we're out of luck. But the larger meta lesson you can take from that is if you finish around the same time that the cycle would have happened, they don't have enough time to piece together what could have happened. Now it seems unlikely that they would have remembered that, but if you gave them time to piece it together, where it's like, oh, list is gone. The last person that had it was orange dress. That person couldn't have banana breaded. Who was the person before that? In between my last cycle, it's text. Let me shoot. But that takes time, that processing, and there's not nearly enough time for banana to go through that processing in order to shoot us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and there's not always a big lesson. Sometimes the lesson is just, you have to be efficient. Certain styles break in certain ways, I guess is all it really is. And Falcon Hit knows that. And one of the things they know up against their camper, if I play a really clean game, I only need to get one little hard tell by him near the end of the game. And if things line up, I win. So good for me.
All right. Well, I believe that takes us up to Diamond. And I've left us with a KCM game. I specifically ended with KCM, not just because we all think of him as a great spy, but because he's a very old player who has played this map for 7 years, basically, and it
Yeah.
hasn't been touched
Yes.
that much. Like, obviously, the biggest change to the map was the addition of new art and then things like fingerprint and purloin, but someone who has been very, very familiar with this map. So KCM also great at adapting to new situations, but as for a methodical spy like KCM, I was just very interested. We might see just like a normal game where they just like get a couple fingerprints and win, but there might be something cool in store. Anyways, what I do expect from the game before I say it, I would be surprised if KCM finds themselves in a difficult position that they got into because they mismanaged their time. That's the only thing that I'll say. And they might win in a couple different ways. They might get shot for just because they swap a statue and like miss the green test, that sort of thing. But as far as a mismanagement thing, that's what I kind of was looking for out of this one. But we will see. And starting in 3. Oh, it's also Smallman. I didn't even notice that. Oh, actually, let me change the before I get into that, change the names.
Yeah. I was gonna say I don't know. I don't remember what happens in this game specifically. I will say specifically, you're saying it's not going to be a pacing issue with KCM. That's the one thing you feel confident about. I was going to say the one thing I feel confident about is that KCM is going to bug.
Interesting. Okay.
But I actually feel less confident of that now that he's Smallman. I still think it'll happen, but I feel less confident now that he has such a suspicious character.
Such a suspicious character, and actually not a good bugger. Like, well, okay, not a good bugger if they are anywhere seen. They're a good bugger when they're just invisible, but their actual arm
Yes.
movement is really out there. It's
Right.
they're mini Taft basically, where their arm sticks out pretty
Yes.
far when they bug.
That badge is silver, though. I
That
do
badge
need
is
to tell
silver.
you. Yes.
Fine. They can
That's
have their. I guess they've earned it.
I guess. I guess. Yeah, so I actually think it's less likely, but I think yeah, I would if it's KCM on Ballroom, I'm looking bug specifically. And I'm looking for two hardtail games. I'm looking for statueless games. He loves them.
All right. We are starting in 3, 2, 1, go.
KCM eschews the obvious thing. I mean, he'll take the win when it's there, but the standard thing of like I'm going to get it with my hardtail and then just do my center statue visit or something like that, he doesn't like it. He likes the creative play.
I'm gonna stop almost immediately and look at what KCM takes control immediately, looks around, whips around to see if there's anything that they can take advantage of in the time of chaos. They walk towards Ambassador just to see if Ambassador runs into them. I think basically, where they're gonna see if they could get a bug. It doesn't happen, so they use the opportunity to bug back into a position where Ambassador might go behind them. So basically, they do a bunch of stuff that could have given them an opening into a bug. Ends up not working, but it doesn't cost them anything either.
Right, yeah, just create the opportunity, and that's almost definitely what's happening, particularly because not only does KCM like to bug, but he's going to bug before the banana bread or the statue visitor or whatever. He's going to bug in the first minute of the game most of the time. So he creates a possibility, doesn't line up, but it could have, and like you said, cost him nothing.
We also we grab a briefcase and put it down immediately. We basically snuck a briefcase, which is pretty underrated as far as like the invisibility of Smallman goes. We don't see a lot of invisible fingerprints. That's usually not one of the things you really value with Smallman, but that is exactly what we did right there.
Yeah, and that's underrated. I actually really like it when people cover up fingerprints. This makes sense when you get to higher levels and like the snipers are just so damn good that instead of covering up something obvious like a purloin with a banana bread, maybe you'll cover up a fingerprint with a banana bread, or you'll do an invisible fingerprint. Literally one half of a Softail mission is the thing you're trying to sneak by the sniper because they're so precise and so good sometimes. I think it's actually kind of underrated. Yeah.
That and the margins on Ballroom, and margins on Ballroom and the margins in Diamond are strong enough that where they can
They're
count the
minuscule,
fingerprints.
yeah.
Exactly right. And so we also took a drink in that position. We're going to take kind of an awkward path, but we're just going to be going for it. We also KCM has great greens.
Yeah, good AT rates for sure.
When we took that drink, we were trying to lose a little bit of heat, but we were willing to do it because we knew we wanted to seduce next, and we saw that selection target was at bookshelves, and so we combined the time that we were killing time, and we made it more of like the aggressive idling that we sometimes talk about. And we're just going to be killing that drink pretty quick. So it didn't actually cost us anything to take that drink, and we might have gotten a little bit lower suspicion because of it. And I think we're just going to bug right here. And then just nothing, just invisible. Didn't have the angle on it. Magician gave up that bug. Absolutely nothing there for Magician. Just the path.
Yep, I played KCM recently, and I was doing prep for it, and I was watching, and I noticed how often he was bugging, and so I said, okay, when I do these replays, I'm going to camp bug on venues like Ballroom, and I would camp bug in the replays, and I would still lose. It was amazing. And eventually I came to the very frustrating and difficult conclusion that, oh my god, if you want to actually catch a spy sometimes, you're going to have to shoot for bugs you didn't see. You're going to have to specifically see a bug path and say, could have been a bug, because some of his bugs are borderline invisible. And you're just shooting for the path, and he's going to force you into that. He's gotten so damn good at the walking bugs.
I am not disappointed with this game. It is very efficient. We're going to be finishing here with the fingerprint. I was almost sure, just knowing KCM, that he was going to pick up a fingerprint I didn't notice. I didn't actually, when he went to the first statue, I was like, he's not going to middle statue. Is this a fingerprintable statue? And I was surprised when it wasn't, because I was like, that's not like KCM not to double up on it. And it's because he was just getting the one cycle inspect just to finish up on the other statues, because he didn't want to sprinkle it too close to the other statue.
Yep. So that's just a really clean game. And he did indeed go silent, by the way. It's on Ballroom. If he can find a way to go silent or statueless, he absolutely will. He does one of those two things on Ballroom, I would say, more than any other player.
Yeah. So besides all the normal kind of things, I'm just gonna like basically zoom through this game and say, so one, we get the flirt in. We combine our time where we get a flirt in. We are a little bit lucky in that the flirt's right next to a fingerprint. We do a hidden fingerprint, so that the second fingerprint we do is not noticed. And we are willing just to take that, like you said, that half mission, which is actually a lot on Ballroom and a lot in Diamond.
Yep.
And then I'm going to zoom forward to when we do the bug path. We set up the bug path so that we go to the pad, see where Ambassador is, and they happen to be at a spot which is actually very good for our bug path, because it's a very reasonable path for us to take to get to the other side of the map. We're not actually bending out of our way too much.
Yeah.
And then we remember where that Ambassador statue is. While Ambassador is still at that statue, we specifically go in one cycle at the other statue, just because we know it's at a side statue. So we're going to need an inspect when we go there later, because we're planning ahead like that, and then head over there to finish.
Yep, and obviously someone could take it in the interim, and then suddenly you need it difficult, but you might hit that too, and your pacing's so good that you have plenty of time anyway, because you finish up with 30 seconds. If you need to rush a fingerprint there, maybe you can.
Great game. And also, the one of the things that I just really like about it is, because we go banana breadless, so sometimes we use the Smallman advantage for exactly 1.5 missions, for the bug and for the fingerprint. Although really the bug was in a path where most characters were able to get to it. It was just a great bug path. Like just the way the party came together, where we were going side to side from painting to painting across an Ambassador at statue, was just going to work no matter what. But the big thing was that we got the hidden fingerprint, so we were willing to not rush, but be aggressive on every other part of the game, and be aggressive without banana bread, which is going to be the big impetus for the sniper to shoot.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And he knows that. He knows that I think part of him's almost like disgusted. Like, oh, who would highlight for the same thing every time? Always wait for the BB, right? It's so uncreative. It's so rote. He doesn't like the rote thing, so he doesn't like to play that way. And he's always trying to find that other path. And on Ballroom, the other path is no contact or no statues. In this case, goes with the statues instead, and it's just so powerful. When you combine it with a bug that good, it's just a ridiculously tough shot to take.
Indeed. All right. Well,
So I think let's draw some broad conclusions, right? I think I hinted at one of them earlier, which is that the higher up you got, the more a small advantage was to translate into a win, as a broad principle, right? The games are increasingly marginal. If you get away with one big thing, one big hardtail, in Copper, you basically win, and in Obsidian, maybe you don't. Is part of it. The other broad lesson, which we already kind of knew, is that Flirt gets finished almost every time high up, and at first couple divisions, it's actually a tougher mission to finish. There's pacing is something that people learn over time. And the kind of third thing, which is sort of the first one over again, which is that when the differences get really marginal, you're literally just trying to cover fingerprints to win the game, as opposed to covering outright hardtails. So the differences are crazy marginal, but it also means that the snipers are expecting their information to be perfect, is another thing. The reason the fingerprint trick works is because when you get the second fingerprint, the sniper feels relatively confident it's the first.
mhm.
A newer sniper is not going to assume that. They're not going to think that. They're just going to look at the timing and think, well, maybe I missed a print or whatever. But if the sniper, the good side, the one little advantage of playing a great sniper is that they know they're a great sniper, presumably, and they're likely to have high degrees of confidence about what you have or haven't done. So when you really do get away with something, they really are going to hold that shot, even when you're visiting statues at the end of the game like that as Smallman.
Indeed. And then one of the observations I liked early on was with the highlights and the borders, where be careful with too many highlights, in particular on all maps, but in particular on Ballroom. We didn't actually talk about Sniper that much about how to manage it, but highlights on Ballroom are particularly dangerous because they are, besides the pillars, the only piece of obstruction that's really going to be blocking you anything. It's not there's basically no static obstruction.
Yeah. I will throw in one more thing because you're right. We did mostly talk about spy, although we talked about sniper reactions in a way. And the way the game is asymmetric, knowing more about how the spies played, of course, makes you a better sniper too. But I'll specifically say that camera angle matters way more on Ballroom, way more. Some of these bugs are invisible, sure, more or less, but more specifically, they're invisible from the positions that the sniper is usually going to be in, which is not quite the same thing. You need to anticipate ambassador vulnerability a lot on this venue.
Indeed. Although, actually, man, I actually didn't really notice this. I haven't really thought about this, but you can only go so far as sniper on Ballroom. This is something I just don't notice, but because the pillar is where it is now, Ambassador is really hard to see at that spot. Even if you go
Yes.
all the way over, I didn't actually know. I thought you could rotate more to get a better angle to
Oh,
that
to the
lane.
far right. Oh,
Yeah.
you can. This is a bug from a recent build, and it's going to be fixed. You used to be able to go flush to the wall.
Okay, perfect. Because I was gonna say I could have like that was I was gonna change
Yep.
my gameplay based around this. So thank you for telling me that's a bug. Because like that's obnoxious. Because actually, basically, if there are people in that conversation, you can't get a really good read on or get a good spot on Ambassador. So when you
Sometimes
say
you can't.
that,
Yeah.
is that something that's gonna be still alive tomorrow in the game?
Yeah. I don't think we're gonna have a build tonight, so that's something to consider, everyone, tomorrow.
That's what you get for tuning in live to the stream, is you get that little marginal piece of information of knowing what the current bugs are on the build, so that
Mm-hmm.
you can use that to your advantage. That's actually huge. Wow. I mean,
It could be.
you have to be you have to get kind of lucky about where Ambassador is, because mostly that's Ambassador that you care about. If Topi's back there, you can still get an angle on the list, but basically Ambassador in that position, and you need some people in that conversation front. It's actually really hard to get an angle on Ambassador there.
Yeah, it's pretty significant. It doesn't seem to have messed things up too bad competitively so far because things still have to line up, just right, and they don't always. But it's something to be aware of. Yeah, at least for the next week or two.
All right. Well, I think that's it. How do you feel?
Yeah. I feel pretty happy about it. I think we saw some of the things we could have guessed and a couple things we couldn't have. And I think we've hopefully prepared some of the people in chat or anyone who watches the VOD, if they watch it real quick, to be ready for the Strictly Ballroom tournament tomorrow. Again, go to discord.gg/SpyParty to learn more about it. It's under the competitions discussion channel, or just ask around. We'll point you in the right place. Or just show up in the lobby. There will be a relevant room, I think, in the SpyParty lobby tomorrow. I believe a little before noon Eastern time, but double check the time just in case I'm wrong. And you can just basically show up a little bit before and play. And there's no real downside to it, so give it a go.
All right. Well, I'm gonna play us out with just doing a slow motion version of that game to the theme song. But thank you for joining me, Track. We hope to do more of these venue themed casts in the future for the Slowcast, because actually this is great. This is actually a great number of games. I was worried we were going to run out of things to say about Ballroom because Ballroom is just so old, but we didn't at all, and I'm very excited to do this in the future.
Every time you and I have ever talked about the possibility of either of us running out of things to say, it has never even come close to happening. Probably says a little something about us. Might not be entirely positive about either of us, but yeah, I let's just say I'm not worried about that ever again.
That is true. That is true. All right. Tune into. Oh, our one more thing. Is the SEL cast getting delayed tomorrow?
It's being moved around. Don't quote me on it yet, but yes, check the specific times. I think tomorrow's might be at the normal time, but I'm almost positive the Sunday one's going to be early because we have some schedule differences. Some casters are unavailable, and because the Game of Thrones finale is probably just going to overshadow everything. So Sunday at the very least is going to be earlier. Check the Discord for updates.
Perfect. I forgot that. Yeah, that's right. The Game of Thrones scene is going to happen. That's right. We are not going to make you choose this week. Should you have chosen poorly and watch Game of Thrones instead, we're going to let you watch both. But just because it is like it's the Super Bowl of Dragons or something, I don't really know what this thing's about, and we expect people to be gone. We're going to be doing it earlier. That's the one that I saw because I thought that I saw one moved around. So Sunday, a little bit earlier. Tomorrow might be going on at the same time as the Strictly Ballroom tournament. So a lot of activity tomorrow, and then more on Sunday. And then we are heading into the finals season of SCL coming up. I don't think we have any finals games yet. We're holding off on the finals until the rest of the lower divisions catch up. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're going to try to. I don't think people are technically required to, but we are asking people to wait a couple more weeks until those divisions catch up. Yeah, and of course, some of the finals aren't even set yet, including my own, actually.
Oh, that's right. Yes, very good. All right.
Couple matches left.
Yeah, very cool. Or we're almost done with the season. I am thrilled that I'm basically done this season. I hate. All right, should talk about how much I hate competitive SpyParty because how much it stresses me. But it's a good thing that stresses me. I keep it in my life because it is stressful. Because if it was easy, I probably would have given up by now. It just shows how much we care. But it's a stressful thing. Not for people with heart conditions. It's the least I will say.
Fair to say. Fair to say.
All right. Well, we will see you next time. Tune in tomorrow to this channel for some coverage of the SCL games, and then pay attention to what's going on in the Strictly Ballroom tournament. I love these weekend tournaments. And then come back Sunday earlier in the day for more SCL, and then heading into the final season soon. I'm Slappy Davis. This Warning Track has been with me. We will see you later.
Take this slow. We just gonna peel it back layer by layer. Yeah. We gonna take this slow. We just gonna peel it back layer by layer. Yeah. We gonna take this slow. We just gonna peel it back layer by layer. Yeah. We gonna take this slow. We just gonna peel it back layer by layer. Yeah. We gonna take this slow. We just gonna peel it back layer by layer. Yeah. We gonna take this slow. We just gonna peel it back layer by layer. Yeah. We gonna take this slow. We just gonna peel it back layer by layer. Yeah. We gonna take this slow. We just gonna peel it back layer by layer. Yeah. We gonna take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah. We gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah. We gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah. We gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah. We gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah. We gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah. We gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah. We gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah. We gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah. We gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah. We gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah. We gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah. We gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah. We gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah. We gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah. We gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah. We gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah. We gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah. We gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah. We gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah. We gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah. We gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah. We gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah. We gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah. We gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah. We gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah. We gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah. We gon' take this slow. We just gon' peel it back layer by layer. Yeah.